Summary.
There are few werewolves, but they keep their world and existence a secret from the human world. However, werewolves are facing population decline and become infertile by the age of 35. No females are born, and werewolves resort to kidnapping women from villages and have been a tradition among the werewolves for thousands of years. It is 2020 in Rome. Romulus, 30, is desperate to have a mate by his side. His one desire is to have a family and will take part in the mate hunt. Lee, 20, goes to Rome to visit her elderly grandmother in a small village. She has no idea what is about to occur and who will desire her. It is time for the mate hunt.
Chapter 1. Lee Pav.
Rome is charming. It has been so long since I came here. I am 20 years old and a university student. I am studying history, my favorite subject. I was born in Rome, but my parents decided to go to the United States for job opportunities. My maternal grandmother stayed behind. I can't blame her. I would probably feel the same thing. My grandmother and I grew very close. I am her only grandchild. I have been told that I looked like my grandmother when she was younger. I guess it's in the family. As a child, I remember that she and I would have little picnics on the hills and the stories she would tell me. The stories were usually about mythology, which I truly enjoyed. She also used to tell me stories of the paranormal and legends, especially werewolves. Stories about werewolves have always intrigued me. I always considered their stories and legends, but my grandmother always told me they were true. I asked her if she ever witnessed a werewolf. She would be quiet and would always change the subject. I always got curious, and my grandmother motivated me to study history. I didn't visit for 4 years because I had to work and attend school. Now I have the opportunity to visit my grandmother in Rome. I need to get away from the stressors in life. I left the airport, rented a car, and am now driving to my grandmother's town. Not much has changed, and I am happy about that. I went by many grassy hills, mountains, little cities, and other villages. This setting was different from the S. The cities are crowded, but the countryside was a different scene, fresh air and environment. My grandmother's town is old, and she said it dates back to the 10th century. I like that people live in such an essential piece of history. About an hour later, I got to the trail that led to my grandmother's town. The road is filled with dirt and rocks, but I don't mind. As I went through the path, I got to the city. The town is filled with houses made of wood, but the wood looks new and robust. A few older people are seen sitting outside their homes or speaking with one another. Usually, there are more elderly than young people, but there are a decent amount of people. I drove through many homes but got to a particular house I knew. I parked and got off. I slowly walked towards the house, and the door opened before I got to the door. It was my grandmother.
Chapter 2. Isla.
Lee got out of the car and walked to her grandmother. Her grandmother, Isla, is 65 years old. She has shoulder-length gray hair that holds a sense of elegance. Her eyes are dark gray, her lips are youthful pink, and her skin is light, with many wrinkles on her face, arms, and hands. Although her appearance gives a sense of elegance and mystery. Isla stood by her home, smiling as she looked at her granddaughter. "Lee, my child, you arrived at last." Isla slowly walked toward the young woman. Lee smiled and walked toward Isla. "Grandmother, it has been so long." Grandmother and granddaughter hugged one another. Isla smiled as the two separated from the hug. She looked at her granddaughter from head to toe. "Look at you. You have grown into such a beautiful young woman. You remind me of myself when I was younger." The older woman giggled. "Oh, grandmother, you still look young. I am just glad that you are doing okay. I know your health was not the best for the last couple of years." "I know. I have you all to thank for sending me financial help to go to the doctor. I finally stopped smoking. It's an addiction. Anyway, you must be tired from your travels. Come inside. Lunch is almost ready." Granddaughter and grandmother helped one another with the belongings and put them inside the house. The house is medium-sized and made of wood. There are 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. The kitchen is small and traditional. Instead of having a stove and other machinery, there is a fireplace with pots, cauldrons, wooden plates, spoons, forks, and cups. Family pictures are hung on the wall plants by the windows and 2 sofas in the living room with a tiny old television. This place has not changed a bit, grandmother. Isla is in the kitchen preparing tea and some cake for both. She also put some tomato sauce on the pasta. With the tray in her hands, she walked to Lee and served tea, cake, and some for herself. Of course, I have not changed my home. It has been in our family for generations, and I want to keep everything as it is. It is our family's history and a tiny part of this country's history. Lee got her cake and began to eat it as she drank sips of her tea. Isla went back to the kitchen to finish preparing lunch. Grandmother, I noticed that there are not many people in the village, as I remember. Isla served the food on plates and put them on the table. A sigh escaped her lips. So many things have changed, Lee. Many families began to move away from their homes due to the lack of opportunities here. There is another reason that you may not believe. This caught Lee's interest. Isla motioned her to sit by the table to eat pasta. Why? Isla looked hesitant as she got her cup of tea and sat beside her granddaughter. Do you remember the many stories I have told you? Yeah, you used to tell me so many stories of mythology and so many legends. I loved hearing your stories. Would you believe me if I told you some of the stories? Lee sat still. What do you mean? My child, I haven't told this to your parents since they would have hesitated to let you come here and visit. Attacks have occurred here and in many villages throughout the years. What kind of attacks? Lee began to feel a bit nervous. Isla took a sip of her tea. Animal attacks. Witnesses say that the animals looked to be like wolves. The young woman stopped her fork midway. Wolves? Yes, but the wolves were different. They had human bodies, but the fur and face of a wolf. That sounds like a werewolf. Lee took a bite of her pasta. The pasta tasted heavenly, just like she remembered. This is good, by the way. The older woman sighed. Yes, a werewolf. Not only that. After these sightings, there have been disappearances. Disappearances, are you saying? Yes, that these sightings of werewolves and disappearances connected.
Chapter 3 Romulus. Romulus Pav.
I look at the moon that gives light within the night, what a beauty. Ever since I came to the age of 16, I have always believed that I would find my mate immediately. It did not happen. Another year passed. Another. Then another. Before I knew it, I was now 30. Every full moon, the werewolf tribes would get together and hunt for mates. We hunt in nearby villages, only it sounds barbaric for one who does not understand it. However, to werewolves, it means the whole world. We see it as hope. The hope is that we will have a mate. We existed alongside humans thousands of years ago, but we dominated humans. We were powerful by day and night. Even females were among the werewolf race. However, the humans prayed to the gods and goddesses for their help. It is said that the moon goddess intervened, and as punishment, she turned the female werewolves into humans so that the werewolf race wouldn't become so powerful. Also, she made the male werewolves infertile when they reached 35 and made them transform only at night. The humans went against the werewolves as revenge. Many werewolves were hunted and killed during the day. The population was at its lowest point. The werewolves begged the moon goddess for forgiveness and pleaded for safe refuge. They swore they would not kill humans only if it were necessary. The moon goddess felt pity, and she granted their wish. She created a safe home for our kind. The entry is a waterfall, and only werewolves know the actual passage. The werewolves pleaded with the moon goddess for mates as loneliness consumed them. The moon goddess agreed. The werewolves made a tradition that when the moon goddess is more powerful, she will allow them to hunt for their mates every full moon. That is how it went. We sometimes went to cities at night before a mate hunt to ensure our mates lived there. There were cases when many werewolves found their mates in cities and faraway places within Rome. Before every mate hunt, I would travel afar to find my mate, but I had no such luck. I have 5 more years until I find a mate. If I don't, I will become infertile. Why is the moon goddess so cruel to me? Whenever I see a werewolf with their mate, I get jealous. My dream is to have my mate beside me and a family. Is that too much to ask? I looked at the moon and prayed to the moon goddess. I prayed to her that maybe this year I would find my mate.
Chapter 4 Near.
Lee was stunned, and it was quiet between them. She eventually finished swallowing a piece of pasta. "Grandma, how can you be so sure? I mean, really, werewolves." Lee wanted to laugh, but when she saw her grandmother's serious expression, she knew it was no laughing matter. "Why do you think I told you those stories? Are you saying that they are real?" "There are stories and legends for a reason, my child. I firmly believe they have existed throughout history, but kept their existences hidden in the shadows. Would you also believe me if I told you I saw them when I visited another village?" The young woman took a sip of her tea. "No way. You never told me this." "This happened when I was your age. I lived in another village before I met your grandfather. There was an attack, and it happened during the full moon. Legends say that werewolves are more powerful under the full moon. Anyway, there were these creatures that attacked us. The men went out to fight these creatures. They used pitchforks, machetes, guns, and other weapons they had. However, these things, werewolves, were smart and quick. They could have killed the men, but they didn't. They outfought and took the young women." "Grandmother, if you say true, why didn't they take you?" Isla sighed. "We lived farthest from the village. My father instructed my mother and the rest of us to go to the woods and run away, far away. We weren't caught. I had friends and cousins that were never seen again. No one believed us in what we saw, so we all believed it would be best to keep quiet." "Wow, I don't know what to say or think. While you are here, you must be more careful. When it is night, you have to be home. Am I understood?" "Yeah, of course. It would be best if you didn't worry, grandmother. I'm sure everything will turn great." Isla smiled. "Well, eat up. I don't want your food to turn cold." Lee began to eat, as did she. Isla looks at the fire burning in the fireplace. "It is almost the full moon. I hope that nothing happens in the meantime." Meanwhile, Romulus looked at the moon with tenderness on a solid tree branch. It's almost time for the mate hunt. He felt his heart pounding from excitement. "Looking at the moon again?" asked a masculine voice. Romulus did not look at the man who spoke to him and sighed. "It is obvious, Remus. I'm sure you are ready for the mate hunt." Remus is in his early 30s and is almost at the age where he will be infertile. Remus climbed on the tree and stood next to Romulus. He stood 6 feet tall and muscular, typical for werewolf males. His hair was short and dark brown, but was nicely slicked to the right side of his head. His eyes were dark brown with dark eyebrows and eyelashes. Remus had a broad face with a small scar on his left eye. His skin was light olive and clear. His face was clean-shaven. "Nervous for the mate hunt?" Romulus smirks. "I should ask you the same thing, cousin. You and I are in our limit." Remus smirked back at his cousin as he looked at the moon himself, praying to the moon goddess. Werewolves getting closer to a certain age always pray to the moon goddess. I am sure you do the same thing. "Do you think this year will be our year?" "Who knows? Perhaps good things come to those who wait," said Romulus. "Indeed, but we have waited for far too long. I mean, look what happened to others of our kind. They never found their mate. Many of them committed suicide. Sometimes I wonder if the moon goddess cares for us anymore." Romulus sits up and looks at Remus. "Don't say such things. Have faith." "Full of faith, but where is your mate? Maybe you were not meant for a mate, no matter how much you pray. Until then, cousin, the mate hunt will be in 2 days." Remus jumped off the tree and went away. He and his cousin didn't always have the best relationship. Remus was considered the good-looking one, while Romulus was considered the wise one. During childhood, they were close but changed when they became adolescents. Both had different ambitions. Remus wanted to be part of the werewolf council, which led the werewolf community. Romulus wanted a more quiet life. Romulus sat alone, thinking about his cousin's words. He then looks at the moon again. "I have faith, the moon goddess. I know this will be the year I will have my mate with me."
Chapter 5 Time.
5 days passed, and 𝐿 returned to her grandmother's home, holding bags of food and other things. She volunteered to get groceries to get to know more people and see more of the village. Once she arrived and entered her grandmother's house, 𝐿 saw 𝐿 sitting by the fireplace, reading a book. She looks up. "Ah, I see you brought the groceries. Thank you for doing that. I told you that I could have gone with you." 𝐿 walks to the kitchen and puts the bag of groceries on the table. "Don't worry, grandmother. I don't mind at all. I enjoy it. It gives me more time to travel and know more people." 𝐿 chuckled as she shook her head. "You are like your father. He hates staying in one place." "I get that a lot." 𝐿 looks out the window and sees the night skies. "The sky is beautiful when it is dark. There are even stars, grandmother. Usually, I don't see them back home. Pollution. It is a shame. The earth and universe have many gifts which we take for granted. You can go outside and enjoy the view. I will finish the rest." 𝐿 looks at her grandmother. "I can't let you cook by yourself. I would feel bad about it." The older woman rolled her eyes. "You truly are like your father. Now, I demand you go outside. You did many errands for me. You are here to relax. Now go," said 𝐿 in a demanding voice. 𝐿 cringed a bit, but she did what her grandmother told her. She went outside and walked a bit far from the house to a small hill. A gust of wind went by her, making her long hair flow. "I almost forgot how beautiful this place was. This is better than the city." She sat and lay down on the soft grass, looking at the night sky, the stars, and the full moon. "How beautiful. The moon can bring so many wonders to the planet. I feel that it brings a lot of secrets." 𝐿 closed her eyes, feeling the wind blowing softly. However, she did not know what was going to transpire. Meanwhile, outside a cave, many men stood before a waterfall. All are bare. Among them are Romulus and Remus. There were about 40 men. Excitement and nervousness overwhelmed them. They were all preparing themselves for the mate hunt. Onlookers, consisting of men, women, and children, looked at the participants in the human society. The group of men stood in front of a stage. Then, an older man who looked to be in his 70s stood on top of a huge rock, looking down at the men before him. All bowed to him and did the same as a sign of respect. His name is Marcus, and he is one of the many elders in the werewolf world. Elders maintain law and order within the packs when there are dire situations, but do not entirely interfere in the duties of werewolves. There was no alpha or beta since it was believed that only a small amount of beings should control an entire society. Werewolf leaders were voted to think of the greater good of the werewolf world. "Werewolves, I bid you all welcome to the mate hunt. The elders and I prayed to the moon goddess for your success securing a mate. Be aware that the hunt can be dangerous, for many humans will try to fight and kill you. Be safe and alert. May you bring your mates with you safely. If any of you fight for the same mate, your case will fall upon us. I know you are all eager, and I will not keep you all for long." All the men began to change in their werewolf forms and howled to the moon. Marcus clapped his hands, and then the ground shook, and a small waterfall opened. On the other side, there was more land. Go and find your mates. Go and secure the future of our kind," announced Marcus. All the werewolves howled and ran through the forest towards the many small villages nearby.
Chapter 6 Mate Hunt Part 1.
The males, including Romulus, changed into their werewolf form. They ran with anticipation as female scents could be smelled from afar. In Romulus' werewolf form, his fur is pitch black as the night. His eyes are red. In his werewolf form, unlike regular wolves, he could stand on his 2 feet. His body was still muscular. He has sharp nails ready to kill anyone trying to get in his way. His competitors had similar forms, but many were different sizes and colors. His cousin, Remus' wolf form, is gray. His eyes are gold. His cousin went with the others. Before Romulus went to a nearby village, he looked at the moon and closed his wolf eyes. "Moon goddess, my entire faith is with you. Please, let this be the night. All I want is a mate I can love and care for until my days on this earth." He opened his eyes again and began to run towards the others. There were 2 villages nearby. The other villages were too far. and it was risky to go to all of them since they were outnumbered, and it could cause too much attention. Throughout the years of mate hunts he participated in, he went through many villages, but there was no such luck. As he ran faster to one of the villages, he felt his heart beating excitedly. Romulus began to feel a sense of hope in his heart. Perhaps the moon goddess heard my prayers, he told himself. He ran faster. A couple of werewolf males ran oppositely, and he went to the right. Romulus could hear some of his competitors' thoughts. Many said they could smell the scents of their mates or have other disturbing thoughts. He only had one goal, to find his mate. Romulus knew many others were almost at the age of becoming infertile, and desperation would kick in. It is not uncommon that many werewolves would kidnap and rape women who are not their mates. Many of them try to impregnate them. If the woman gets pregnant, they are forced to marry the werewolf, a cruel fate. Romulus and the other werewolves got to a hill and saw a village. Many of the homes still had their lights on. He then smelled something nice and wonderful. It smelled of lavender. "I can smell her, my mate," he told himself in utter delight. "The moon goddess heard my prayers. Thank you, moon goddess." Then the others ran toward the village. Romulus ran too, and he did not want his mate to be in the arms of another. Meanwhile, Lee still lay down on the grassy ground. She felt like it was hours that she had been outside, so she decided to go back to her grandmother. As the young woman stood up, she heard howling. Lee began to walk toward the village, and as she walked, she saw things running fast toward the village. Screams echoed. "Werewolves!" yelled many people. Lee could not believe it. Many people tried to run away, and gunshots were heard. Lee ran as fast as she could to the village without thinking when she thought of her grandmother. For her, the well-being of her grandmother came first to her mind. Lee got closer and closer to the village, and she stopped in her tracks. Bodies were on the ground, and blood splattered everywhere. What horrified her the most were the beasts before her. The beasts went after the young women. Werewolves. Her thoughts were interrupted when she felt something hot behind her. She slowly turned around and was in front of a werewolf. Fear overcame her, but she heard something in her mind. The werewolf let out a soft growl. "Mate."
Chapter 7 Mate Hunt Part 2.
Romulus ran into the village as the scent of lavender hit his nose. He looked all over the village to see where the scent came from. Screaming people ran all over the village. Many men were shooting their guns at him and the other werewolves. However, he and the others would dodge them in an instant. Whenever he saw a woman, he would smell them, but the scent was not on them. "Where is she?" he asked himself. As he looked, the scent got closer and closer. Then he stopped. Before him was a woman. Romulus slowly walked to her, and his nose was behind her neck. "She is the one." The woman turned, and when Romulus saw her entire appearance, he felt his breath drawn away. "She is beautiful." Romulus could not believe that such a beauty could exist. "Mate," he growled softly. When he saw her flinch, he gave out a wolf grin. Romulus knew right there and then that she was his mate. As for Lee, she felt her heart beat in terror, but also excitement. It was something she could not explain. The werewolf in front of her looked at her like she was the most precious thing on earth. The werewolf sniffed her, slowly raising his left hand and touching her face gently. Lee's eyes became wide open at the sudden act. However, the screaming and bullets got her out of her trance. Lee ran away from him. Romulus felt shocked and hurt. He finally found his mate, and she ran from him. The feeling of possessiveness overwhelmed him. He went after her. "I will not allow you to be away from me. You are mine, and I will have you by my side," Romulus said to himself. He would dodge and push humans away from his path. Lee ran as fast as her legs could take her. Her grandmother's safety was on her mind, and she prayed that she was still alive. It seemed like an eternity, but she got to her grandmother's house, and fear overwhelmed her. Lee broke the door to the house. She ran inside, and once inside, she saw her grandmother lying on the ground. A werewolf with brown fur stood over her and was about to attack. "Get away from her," yelled Lee as she got a pot from the floor. The werewolf turned and looked at her. Lee saw a brownish werewolf looking at her, and a smirk came upon its face. It began to walk towards her. She ran to the werewolf and tried to hit it with the pot. but the werewolf grabbed her arm, making her drop it. "Ugh, grandmother, run!" she yelled. Isla got up, but she did not leave. She got a knife near her and stabbed the werewolf in the back. The werewolf howled in pain, but did not let Lee go. The werewolf punched Isla so hard that she hit the wall and landed on the ground, unconscious. "Grandmother, let me go, let me go." Lee punched the werewolf with her free arm. Suddenly, the brown werewolf looked at the entrance and growled in anger. Lee looks, and it is the black werewolf she saw, and he looks angry. Romulus saw his mate in the hands of another. It is not uncommon for werewolves to fight to the death for females, which will be no different. Romulus charged at his rival, and the other did the same. Romulus punched, scratched, and bit the rival, who still held onto Lee. Lee yelped in pain as the grip on her was too tight. "Please let me go," she cried. The cry of his mate made Romulus angry. He bit on his rival's arm and forced him to the ground, forcing him to let Lee go. Lee fell to the floor and was horrified at the sight before her. The brown werewolf howled in utter pain as blood spurted out of his body. He fell to the ground and did not move. It died. The body slowly turned to what looked like ash. Lee was shocked but shook her head and went to her unconscious grandmother. "Grandmother, please wake up." Then she felt a firm yet gentle grip around her waist, and the next thing she knew was that she was being taken away from her grandmother, house, and village. As for Romulus, he held onto his mate into the darkness.
Chapter 8 Reality.
Lee was held on Romulus' shoulders as he ran far from the village. She had never felt so much fear in her entire life. Shock filled her being, and her mind couldn't accept that werewolves existed. If she told others of her experience, they would call her crazy. It was reality, her reality. The village was far away, and Lee noticed she and the werewolf were in mid-air. The young woman screamed, and Romulus, in his werewolf form, flinched as he heard Lee screaming. However, he knew he couldn't stop making her feel comfortable. There was still a possibility that other competitors would try to steal Lee away from him. Romulus glanced behind. The village was far away, and he felt victorious.
Romulus Puff.
I never felt so alive. I finally have my mate in my arms. I have the moon goddess to thank. Yet, I know she will have many questions, and I will answer them. My biggest fear is that she will try to escape and fear me. I waited so long for her, and will not let her leave me. I would die before I'd let that happen. We were near the waterfall, but I decided it was best to know my mate. As I ran, I could hear the screams of women. I knew many were kidnapped and taken away from their families and homes. This year, many werewolves are at the age of almost becoming infertile. The werewolves would take drastic measures to keep their mates and have the family they wanted. My father and many of my ancestors have done it too. My mother was a human from a town, and it was time for the mate hunt. My father smelled her scent and took her. My father told me how much my mother hated him and tried hard to escape. However, it is difficult for them to flee once females are taken into the werewolf society. If they did, they would be found and killed so that they wouldn't reveal the secret of our home. My father waited patiently for my mother to fall for him. It took 2 years, and she slowly began accepting her new life. My mother eventually became pregnant with me, but she died giving birth to me. My father was heartbroken. He still raised me until I turned 16. However, the pain of losing my mother was too much on him. He committed suicide. I was heartbroken that I lost my parents, but for a werewolf, losing a mate is like losing oneself. I stopped on top of a rocky hill, which would make it impossible for her to escape. I let her down. She moved away but stopped when she realized her situation. She looked at me. "Pete, please don't hurt me." I looked at my mate, and I couldn't help but be mesmerized by how beautiful she was. My mate was such a natural beauty. It hurt me when she thought that I would hurt her. I would never do such a thing. I was still in my werewolf form, and it made sense why she would think I would hurt her. I turned my back to her and began to change into my human form. Once I turned, I saw a blush forming on her face. I only wore shorts, but the rest of my body was noticeable. I chuckled. "What is your name?" My mate was silent and shocked. "I know that all of this is a shock to you, but I will explain everything to you soon. As you know and saw, I am a werewolf. We do exist, but we live in secrecy, so humans don't hunt or use us for their own selfish needs. So please, tell me your name." "Lee." She whispered, "Lee, beautiful name. I am Romulus. I am so happy to meet you." I felt my heart beat with happiness and excitement. I am so happy and grateful to have a mate like you. This made Lee flinch, and her eyes widened. "A mate? What are you talking about?" I sighed. I knew what I would say next would be difficult for her to accept. However, patience is what I needed. As you heard, you are my mate. My love, MINE. That's reality. We were silent, and I waited for her to say anything. She slowly put her hands on her head. "What the hell?"
Chapter 9 Stubborn.
Romulus sighed, but let out a small smile. "You are my mate, my love, MINE." Lee's heart pounded quickly, and confusion clouded her mind. "What do you mean, mate? How long have werewolves existed? Why are you doing this?" Romulus crossed his arms and hummed, thinking about how to explain. "A mate is like a soulmate. In the werewolf world, a mate is everything to us. They are like our reason for living and dying. Without a mate, there is no point in living. Our moon goddess is the one who chooses our mates for us." He knelt before Lee, and he touched her hair. He loved the feeling of it, soft and gentle. "I'm happy that you are mine." As for Lee, her confusion got the best of her, but she got out of it when she saw Romulus' face getting closer to her face. She immediately moved away. Romulus gave out a slight whimper. "You said that the moon goddess chose me to be your mate, like the moon goddess Selene?" The werewolf smiled as he nodded. "Something like that." Lee kept her distance. Romulus noticed, and he gave her space. "That is not right. I did not ask to be a wolf's mate. This is just crazy. How can a goddess be cruel? What if the woman does not want to be a mate?" When she said that, she noticed Romulus' expression, sad and hurt. She did not know why but felt terrible about what she said. "We don't question our moon goddess, and she is the one who we look up to. She gives us plenty. We werewolves are not like human males. I see how human males are. They take women for granted and would betray their trust for their selfishness. Though I admit, many women act the same." Romulus kept on looking at Lee, loving the sight of her. "However, the moon goddess knows what is best for us and chooses mates who are pure of heart. Even though we just met, I can see the love and kindness in your eyes. I know you are beautiful on the inside." Lee blushed at his words. She felt nice that Romulus said such things to her. She looked behind her, seeing a faint smoke from the village. That is when she remembered her grandmother. She stood. "Romulus, I need to return to the village," she worriedly said. "I am worried about my grandmother. She is hurt. That other werewolf hurt her when she tried to help me." Romulus' arms are still crossed. "No." He noticed Lee flinch at his response. He did not care, at the least. She slowly turned around, an expression forming on her face. "Care to repeat it?" "Gladly." "No," he responded. "Why the hell not?" she yelled as she went in front of him. Romulus knew that Lee wasn't going to be happy with his answer. Yet, he had to admit that he liked a challenge. "You will try to run away and not want to return with me. Your grandmother should be fine. You are my mate, and your place is with me now." Lee looked at his expression, and it reminded her of a child. She felt that he looked adorable and wanted to squeal but contained herself. She thought of other ways. "Come on, I want to see if she is okay, that's all. Pretty please." Lee did a baby face, something that worked on others. He looked at her. His expression did not change. "As I said, no. My word is final." Lee looked at his body and decided to use her last weapon. Lee went to him and hugged him. Deep in her mind, she loved the feeling of his body, muscles, and abs. Lee stopped the dirty thoughts in her mind. She then trailed her hands on his muscular chest. This shocked Romulus, but he knew what she was up to. However, he let her continue, loving her touch. "Come on, Romulus." She slowly walked around him, facing his back. She is amazed at how muscular he is. "I only want to know if my grandmother is okay. Why would I leave such a scrumptious, delicious-looking man?" Her hands touched his back, and then went to his chest. Romulus growled at her touch. "You are mouth-watering. Your body is so tempting that I should ravish you." Romulus was shocked at Lee. He never thought that she had a way with words. He could feel her hands touching him, and he looked down at his cock, and it was beginning to become erect. Romulus did not want to scare her off. Nice try, but no. Lee could not control her anger. "Damn you, you damn dog, I am going to." She did not finish. Instead, Romulus grabbed her and put her on his shoulder. "Put me down." "No, my amore. Though I must admit, you have a way with words. I look forward to taking you home and spending our lives together." The young woman kept on screaming, but she was ignored. Romulus still held onto her and went on to his journey home.
Chapter 10 New Home.
Throughout the travel, Lee screamed, hit, and kicked when she could. Romulus found it amusing and would hum with amusement and joy. The kicking and the hitting did not hurt him. He found it thrilling and loved the feeling of her touch. Romulus considered himself a masochist who didn't mind some physical pain from his mate. He was happy to have her. For what seemed like an eternity, Lee gave up. Her throat became dry. Her arms and legs became tired and sore from all the fighting. She let Romulus take her where he wanted. No matter what Lee did, she knew it was pointless. He was more stubborn than a mule. Romulus would run and jump through trees and mid-air. Both are far away from the village. Curiosity and nervousness fill her. "Where are you taking me?" she asked loudly. Romulus stopped on top of a tree. Lee yelped at the height they were at. Don't drop me." He looked at her and smiled. "We are headed to our home." The young woman flinched. "What do you mean home? I am from the United States. That is my home." This surprised Romulus. "You are from the United States? Why did you come here? Although I am happy that you did, or else I would have never found you." Lee huffed. "I came here to visit my grandmother, and I wish I could return in time and not come here. I don't know if my grandma is okay, and a dog kidnapped me." When she said that, she could feel Romulus flinch. That hurt. Lee ignored him. "Humph. Well, good. That is what you get for kidnapping me." Romulus chuckled. "Well, feel what you want, my amore. You are mine, and that will never change. You can be mad at me all you like, but I will never let you go." Lee was about to respond, but he began to run again, this time faster. Her heart raced with emotion. She felt her head losing consciousness. Little by little, her eyes were beginning to close. Darkness consumed her. About 30 minutes later, Romulus arrived in front of the waterfall, and he shook her gently. She did not respond. He took her off his shoulder and held her bridle style. That is when he realized that she had lost consciousness. Romulus held her tightly as if he was afraid that she would leave. His attention was on the waterfalls, where there were a couple of sections as the waters flowed down. Many bushes and trees on the waterfall gave it a hint of mystery on what could be hidden. There was something hidden that no human knew about, and if they did, then it would be the end of their kind. Romulus took a deep breath as he looked around. He spoke in Latin, and the waters began to lift. The rocks inside began to open a passageway. The passageway was not entirely noticeable since the waters were covering it. He, with Lee in his arms, walked inside. He covered her so the water wouldn't hurt her. Once inside the passage, the rocks closed behind them. Darkness surrounded them both, and as Romulus walked through the dark path, faint blue lights began to light his way. The lights came from crystals and rocks that were within the walls. The path seemed endless, but the light was at the end of the tunnel. When he went to the end of the path, trees were everywhere, and a large city was as big as Rome. Houses were either on the ground or built on the walls, making them look like small apartments. Small lakes and small waterfalls in different parts of the city were the city's water source. There were no vehicles but wooden carts, horses, and mules. The city was in one place, so werewolf society believed human vehicles weren't needed. However, they did have Wi-Fi and laptops, but phones were not allowed since werewolves could mind-link one another. Home at last. He looked at Lee, who was still asleep. He jumped into the mini forest and ran through many trees to reach the city. Once in the city, he received many looks. The werewolves, who were all males, went to him and congratulated him. Romulus thanked them and continued walking toward a road to the city's left side. He ran with Lee in his arms and didn't want to risk her waking up and creating a scene. Moments later, Romulus climbed a few stairs leading to a small street with rows of cottage-like houses with space between them. His home was the last one on the small streets since he liked his privacy. His home could fit a small family surrounded by a wooden fence. There was a small garden where fruits and vegetables were grown. There were 2 water barrels on each side of the house. The cottage was made of wood, stones, cement, and twigs. The decorations were nicely done, giving it a fairy tale-like vibe. Romulus opened the fence door, went toward the door of his home, opened it, and entered. He went to his room and laid Lee down. He lay beside her, holding her closer. Romulus could not stop looking at her. He was always used to sleeping alone, with no one beside him, no one he could say good night, no one to say, I love you. He is no longer alone. Please don't let this be a dream, he murmured.
Chapter 11 Day.
Before the sun had a chance to rise, Romulus woke up. He stretched a bit, opened his eyes, and looked beside him. Lee was still asleep, breathing softly. Romulus smiled and gave out a small sigh of relief. He gently and lightly touched her face. You are not a dream. At long last, I have my mate. Romulus slowly and quietly got up from bed and put on pants and a plain shirt. He looked at Lee and smiled again. He quietly closed the door and went to the kitchen. Romulus flinched and realized that parts of his house were a mess. He was so excited that he forgot to clean up after himself. Damn it, I'd better get working. He cleaned the living room, many hallways, and the kitchen with his wolf speed. About 20 minutes later, Romulus cleaned his house. Romulus looked out the window, and the sun was rising. The werewolf stood in the kitchen and began to think. He knew that Lee would not be happy, and she would demand him to take her home. Romulus growled at the thought. I will never let her leave. I have waited too damn long for her to be with me. Romulus looked in the refrigerator. He saw some eggs, bread, and fruit. Romulus went outside to his garden, took some tomatoes, returned to the kitchen, and opened the refrigerator again. Romulus took out some ingredients and began to cook. Meanwhile, Lee woke up and stretched her arms and legs. She opened her eyes and saw the ceiling, then looked around. What in the? Slowly, she sat up, got off the bed, and looked at the window. What she saw surprised her: trees, hills, and people walking out of their houses. Lee tried to open the window, but it did not budge. She looked at the door, carefully opened it, and Lee unlocked it. Lee walked out of the room and slowly walked through the halls to the stairs. As she walked down the stairs, food filled her nose. Romulus put the food on plates with cups of milk and water. He looks up and sees Lee. You're awake. Good morning. Sorry, this is what I have for now. Come, you must be hungry. However, Lee did not move. I am not hungry. He looked at her and sighed. You will not be able to escape. You are in the world of the werewolves. They will not allow you to escape. They will have you either brought back to me or have you killed. I don't want you to get hurt. This shocked Lee. What kind of world did you bring me in? One of a kind. He patted the chair. Now, come here and eat. If you do, you and I can shop for food together. If you don't, you will stay here, and trust me when I say this, you will not be able to escape. I will make sure of that. Choose the easy way or the hard way. He then sat down on a chair, getting his plate of food. Lee felt angry, but knew that her anger would not lead her anywhere. She wanted a way out, but for now, she will play the game. She sighed, walked to the table, sat beside him, and slowly ate. The young woman did not look at him. Romulus felt relieved that Lee was eating. At least she didn't put up much of a fight. However, it wasn't over, and he knew that Lee wouldn't go down without a fight. He swore that he would end up being the victor.
Chapter 12 Decision.
The sun began to rise in the sky. A cool breeze hit the small, empty village. In the small cave, Lee and Romulus slept soundly. However, Romulus opened his eyes as he heard the birds chirp outside the cave. He massaged his eyes and felt a small weight on his chest. He looked down and smiled. The werewolf looked at his sleeping mate. For the first time in his life, he finally felt complete. The memory of him and Lee making love made him smile. Romulus pulled her closer to him and kissed the top of her head. Lee groaned from her sleep and slowly opened her eyes. She stretched. Once fully awake, she saw Romulus' muscular chest. That was when all the memories of the previous night came to her. Lee blushed at the memory of their time together. "Good morning, my love," purred Romulus. She did not look at him. Lee felt embarrassed. "Morning." A chuckle escaped. "Don't be embarrassed, love. It is normal for couples to have sex. Although, I am happy that I was your first." Lee felt her face getting warmer from embarrassment. "Stop that." She gently slapped his chest. Both were in one another's arms, enjoying each other's touch and warmth. However, Lee was thoughtful, and Romulus noticed. "What's wrong? Did I do something that did not please you? Are you mad at me? Lee covered his lips with her right hand. "No, it's not that. It's about my grandmother. Now that we made love, I am conflicted about my place. I would feel a bit guilty for leaving my grandmother or you." The thought of Lee leaving him would destroy him. He would have no purpose to live, but he did not want to hurt her. "It's your choice. Whatever it is, I will respect your decision." Lee noticed the sadness in Romulus' eyes and voice. It tore her heart to pieces. She came closer to him and kissed him. "Come on, I want to go visit my grandmother." Both got dressed and headed to Isla's house. Once inside, they saw her in the kitchen cooking food. She turned to look at them. However, she carefully eyed them and then looked back to the food. "You both mated." Lee flinched, but Romulus contained his composure. "We did," he responded. Isla shook her head. "It seems that you made your decision, Lee." "Grandmother, Don't lie to yourself, child. You're a grown woman. Don't stay here out of pity. No matter how much you try to hide it, I know you have feelings for the wolf. It's time that you made your own decisions in life." Isla looked at her granddaughter. "Don't have regrets. I know your heart and body are with him." She then motioned the couple to sit. "It is time to eat." Lee and Romulus looked at one another and smiled. Lee and Romulus put their arms around one another and went to eat, not knowing what would occur. Meanwhile, in the werewolf world, Remus felt confused. Lee wasn't home, and neither was his cousin Romulus. He wanted to visit them, mostly Lee, but they weren't home. Where could they have gone? He asked himself. Remus asked many in the village about their whereabouts, but no one saw them. That was 2 days ago. Remus sat atop a tree branch, wondering where they could have gone. He knew his cousin's schedule and wanted to visit Lee privately. He wanted to try to convince her that Romulus was not the right choice. Yesterday, he went back to their house and went into their room. It was wrong of him, and he knew it but didn't care. He still could smell a faint of Lee's scent in her clothing and bed. Remus growled at the thought of her. Shamelessly, he lay on the bed and wondered if his cousin had yet to lay with Lee. The thought of laying naked on the bed for Romulus made him angry. However, the image of her in her glory made him hard. It has been a while since he laid with a woman. Remus missed a woman's touch. Remus remembered when he touched himself that day, imagining Lee wanting him. He shook his head and took out a piece of clothing he got from the house. Remus smelled it again, smelling her scent, and something came to him. He could not smell their cousin in their world. It was as if they were no longer within the werewolf world. That was when it hit him. He stood up from his seat. Romulus had broken one of the most sacred laws of the werewolves. Once they have a mate, they and their mate can no longer return to the human world. If the law is broken, it would mean death. However, if Remus told the council the news, he could ask for anything he desired. He could even ask for his cousin's mate to be his. The werewolf knew that he would betray his cousin, his only family, but deep down, he felt entirely selfish. Remus sighed, but he always felt envy for Romulus. He was strong, confident, and everything he wanted to become. As for Remus, he had always been the unlucky one. That was when Remus decided to go to the werewolf council and explain everything, for he knew it was his chance at happiness.
Chapter 13 out.
Lee and Romulus finished eating breakfast. Romulus got their plates and washed them in silence. Lee, however, looked around the house. It was a decent-sized house that looked like a cabin for vacations. Romulus glanced at her. "You like it?" It's nice. I'm glad this house used to belong to my parents, but when they passed on, it was left to me. It was silent once again, and Romulus finished washing the dishes. We need more food, and you will go grocery shopping with me. Remember what I told you earlier? Don't try to run. You will not get far. Am I clear? She did not answer. Romulus sighed. I am not trying to be hurtful. I am telling you these things because I care and love you. When Romulus said those words, Lee lashed out. Love? Are you kidding me? You kidnapped me against my will and won't take me back to my grandmother. We barely know each other, and you're already in love with me. What kind of thing are you? She noticed Romulus cringe a bit. His eyes held a bit of sadness. I feel what I feel. We werewolves were built differently from human males. You can call me the most horrendous names in existence. Feel free if you like. That night, you were almost taken by another werewolf. You were not his mate, but he was about to take you either way. Tell me, what do you think would have happened? Lee felt a shiver go down her spine. She knew what would have happened, but she did not respond. He continued. In our society, only males are born, and we become infertile by age 35. When male werewolves almost reach that age, desperation takes them over. You could have been raped and forced to be with him. You would have been even more miserable. Have I even tried to rape or harm you? Lee did not answer again. Deep down, she felt at least grateful to him. However, her pride did not let her admit it. Lee wanted to return home, but her screaming was not getting her anywhere. Look, I'm grateful that you haven't forced me that would have brought me harm. It still doesn't change that you took me against my will. I know. I'll admit that what I did hurt you emotionally and mentally. However, it would be best to accept that the world isn't fair for everyone, which is your fate. Everything happens for a reason. Romulus stood and motioned out his hand to her. Come. I know this is going fast, and you're new to this, but the sooner you get used to our society, the better. The young woman looked at Romulus. She wanted to be defiant and make him miserable. So miserable that he would leave her. However, curiosity got the best of her. She did not hold his hand and heard a quiet whimper from him. Romulus walked before her and opened the door. What is this place? This is the werewolf society where human mates live in. We live separately from humans so we don't become discovered, which can risk our species. We can't have the wrong people know about us, especially the government. I see, it makes sense. Romulus chuckled, and he held Lee's hand. What are you doing, dog? I can walk on my own. Romulus chuckled. Don't call me a dog. It hurts my feelings. He playfully wiggled his eyebrows. You can call me Honey Bun, my love, my everything, darling, or my world, but never a dog. Lee was surprised. She never thought a werewolf man with so much intimidation would have a soft side. She wanted to squeal but held herself. Whatever you say, dog. Romulus playfully shook his head and motioned her to a small part of the city. Lee saw how clean the city was. The city felt medieval, but the people were dressed in modern clothing. Many occupants greeted the couple, and there were many shops, cafes, and small parks. Lee was amazed that the city held everything. She was led to a street where street vendors sold fruits, vegetables, bread, and other food. Romulus, with her help, shopped for groceries. I'm curious. What do you do to work for money? We have our currency and our system. It's a bit complicated. However, we get by. I am a guard for the Werewolf Council, so I make a decent living. While picking out some food, a group of 3 boys were playing tag and stopped by the couple. They looked at Lee, and she did the same. She couldn't deny that the boys were adorable. The youngest, who looked to be 5 years old, waved at her. You're pretty. This surprised her, and she blushed. Why, thank you. You're all adorable and will be lookers when you're older. The boys waved goodbye and went on their way. Well, that was random. Either way, they are respectable kids, not like in the United States. Romulus paid for the food, and the 2 went on their way back to his home. Children can be a hassle, but they are worth it if one raises them to be respectable. I can't wait to have our children. Lee stopped walking, and her eyes widened. Her eyes and arms felt weak. What?
Chapter 14 Walk.
A month passed, and Lee was getting used to being with Romulus, but she couldn't deny that she still missed her family. She often wondered if her parents in the States had arrived at her grandmother's, if they were still looking for her, and if the families of the kidnapped women were still looking for their daughters. Romulus would tell her more about the werewolf society, stories, legends, and the moon goddess. It intrigued her. He would also take her to the city once in a while to get used to the city. They would eat in cafes, watch movies in theaters, walk in parks or by lakes, and so forth. The city had everything a small society needed, so no one needed to leave. There were times when Lee spoke with some women recently kidnapped or kidnapped a long time ago. Many have slowly adapted to their new lives, while others still have trouble adjusting and miss their families. Stockholm Syndrome. Lee knew that all women had suffered from this syndrome. She hated to admit that she was slowly falling into it since Romulus treated her with love and respect. He was patient with her. He still kidnapped her, and knowing what to feel and think was difficult for her. It was mid-afternoon. The two finished eating lunch, and Lee asked to walk outside. Romulus joined her, and he got a hold of her right hand as they walked. They looked like a couple. Both kept walking by many stands until Lee stopped when something caught her interest. Romulus also stopped. Lee looked at a stand where handmade dresses of many different colors were, but a long white dress caught her interest. The dress had a light brown belt in the middle. There were flower decorations on the bottom parts of the dress. "Do you like it?" asked Romulus. She blushed in response. He chuckled. "How much?" he asked the elderly couple in charge of the stand. 2 silver coins, responded the elderly man. Romulus nodded and gave them the payment. He was given the dress and then gave it to Lee. The young woman held on to the dress, looking at its decorations. "You didn't have to." He smiled. "I wanted to, my love. Besides, you have good taste." He looked at the couple, thanked them, and motioned them to return home. "I almost forgot that the city will celebrate the Moon Festival in 3 days." Moon Festival. What is that? We pray to the moon goddess to give her tribute and gratitude for our mates. It's also a chance for the community to come together and socialize. It will be fun. Food stands, music, dancing, storytelling, and more will be there. They continued walking, but Lee was curious about something. What about the ones who did not get their mates? Romulus stopped for a moment. He forgot about that and almost forgot about his cousin, Remus. He hadn't seen Remus within a month, which made him wonder if his cousin could get a mate this year. They can still participate, but it could become difficult for them. They would see other males with their mates, which could cause a stir. However, the council made laws to punish unmated males who tried to create trouble. The two made it home, and Romulus motioned Lee to enter. He closed the door. "Even with laws in place, it could still be dangerous, and I want you to always be by my side." "How so?" Lee asked nervously. "Werewolves who don't have mates would try to steal another's. They would risk punishment or even death." Romulus let out a low growl. His eyes slowly changed pitch black. "However, I will not let another male take you. You are mine and mine alone. I would kill anyone who takes you away from me." He put his arms around her. Their bodies touched one another. She felt his possessiveness when he put his arm around her waist. She didn't know why, but it excited her. Eventually, Romulus calmed himself. "Anyway, I was tasked to help build some stands, and I would like you to come with me, so you can help the women with cooking and do the lighter work. It would be great for you to make friends." Lee merely nodded and could not stop thinking about the Moon Festival. She did not know why, but deep in her heart, she felt afraid.
Chapter 15 Promise.
There is a part of Romulus that regrets telling Lee the truth. He wanted to sweeten her and make her fall for him, but now he slipped up and could not return it. Lee began to walk back to the house, angry at his previous comment. Lee was flabbergasted and angry. Angry that she had been taken away by force from the life she knew. Romulus expected her to have his children, something she wasn't ready for. On the other hand, she almost forgot about his soon infertility. Some of her couldn't blame him, but it was her life, and she didn't ask to be his mate. Romulus motioned her to walk forward to return to the house with grocery bags in hand. The two were silent as they returned to the house. Lee put the grocery bags on the table and crossed her arms, having her back on him. The werewolf also put his bags down and sighed. "I'm sorry. I know what I said was a shock, and you might not want to have children quickly." The young woman bit her lower lip. "You expect me to be all happy and merry, but how could you ever expect that from me?" She slowly glared at him with her arms still crossed. "How would you feel if you were kidnapped, not knowing if you will ever see your family ever again?" Romulus sighed again. "If I were in your shoes, I would feel and think like you do now. I never asked to be born a werewolf, to have a cursed life like my forefathers. Yet, I was born as a werewolf. The want for love and happiness makes a werewolf's life worth living. I indeed took you for my selfishness, for my happiness. You can hate me and be angry until my last dying breath. I will never tell you not to be angry, but I will take in all your anger. I will take your pain and make it mine until there is none left in your heart. That is a promise." This made Lee's heart flutter. She didn't expect him to speak with sincerity. Even in such a short time they knew one another. Romulus let his intentions and feelings known. He could have lied to her to keep her under control. He didn't. Romulus knew she was still angry and hurt that she was taken away from her way because of an outdated tradition. She couldn't explain why she felt such a connection toward him. Was it the mate situation he spoke to her about? All she knew was that it bothered her when she saw Romulus upset. "Why am I feeling this way?" she asked herself, not realizing that Romulus heard her. "You feel that way because the closer you are to me, the more we can feel each other's feelings. We are chosen to be together because of the moon goddess. I know it isn't straightforward, but everything will become easier as we stay together. Besides, I haven't marked you yet." "Marked?" "We haven't become official mates until I mark you. Male werewolves mark their mates to indicate to other males that the female is off limits. We take fidelity very seriously, as werewolves mate for life." The young woman slowly gave him her full attention. "So, why haven't you marked me yet?" "Well, I guess you can say I like doing things traditionally. I want you to accept me fully. I want to give you some power to make your decisions." Romulus slowly walked toward her, gently holding her hands. He then put her hands over his heart. "I want you to accept my heart into your own accord. It might take a while, but I am willing to wait." He smiled. "Come on, help me put food away. Maybe we can watch a nice movie to pass the time. What do you say?" Lee merely nodded as she helped him put the food away. She was stunned. His words almost made her shed a tear. No man had ever spoken to her as Romulus did. She could feel he was honest. The young woman also felt conflicted since he still kidnapped her, and she was worried about her grandmother. Maybe there was a possibility that she could convince Romulus to take her to see her grandmother, but she had to earn his trust as he had to earn her affection.
Chapter 16 Moon Festival.
Lee and Romulus couldn't believe how 3 days passed. The two helped the city get ready for the moon festival. The werewolves who were part of the mate hunt had their mates nearby. The newly mated males feared for the safety of their mates. Romulus and the other males knew unmated males would try to get close to their mates. Some guards would walk about the city streets to protect the human females. Fortunately, there wasn't trouble. Lee helped the other women to prepare for the festival. It was a lot of hard work, but she enjoyed being out of the house, which kept her mind occupied. She still thought about her family, but a festival lit up the mood for her and everyone. The werewolves enjoyed working with one another. Within 3 days, everything was set. The festival would begin at 6 p.m., and the city was bustling with excitement. Romulus was in the restroom, leaving Lee to change in privacy. Although Lee stayed with him for a while, he still slept in the guest room since he didn't want to make her uncomfortable. He hoped that Lee would soon accept him so he could sleep beside her. He finished combing his hair and looked at his reflection. He wore a long-sleeved dark red buttoned shirt with a couple of top buttons undone. He also wore black dressy pants with dressy shoes. His dark hair was nicely combed and slicked back. He also had mild cologne. Romulus walked out toward the living room. "Lee, we must leave? Are you almost done changing?" "I'm coming," he heard her respond. Romulus listened to the door opening, closing, and soft footsteps coming downstairs. When he saw her, his breath was taken away. Lee wore the dress that he bought her. She put her hair in a nice bun and wore a necklace that he also bought her. "You look beautiful." She blushed. "Thanks, you look good too." Romulus smiled and returned to the kitchen, holding a crown of flowers made of white roses. "I made this for you. When a male werewolf finds his mate in the moon festival, he makes her something special. I hope you like it." He walked over to her and put the flower crown on her head. "It's beautiful. Thank you, Romulus." She touched the crown. Romulus extended his hand. She gladly accepted, and both walked out of the home. The village was dark. Only torches of fire lit the streets. Many couples left their homes and went into the woods surrounding this village. The main event would be by the waterfalls, where the council would make a speech. Romulus, Lee, and other couples walked deeper and deeper within the trees of the dark woods. There was a faint light, and as they all got closer and closer, they could see more people dancing or sitting near a large fire. Children ran and played. She felt Romulus holding onto her hand tightly. "Remember, stay by my side." Lee was silent but nodded. Both walked to the festivities. Romulus introduced her to more couples that she never had the chance to meet and speak to. He then led her to the tables holding food and drinks for the guests. Different types of meats, fruits, salads, soups, and various beverages existed. Lee and Romulus got their plates and put on the food they wanted. With their plates full, the couple sat by another who was eating and conversing. A group of men was playing music. It was music she had never heard before, but it was soothing. Many couples were dancing with one another. Lee finished her plate, but still felt hungry. "I'm going to get more food. Do you want any more?" Romulus nodded. "I would appreciate it." The young woman got his plate and went back to get more food. Once she got what she needed, Lee was heading back. As she got closer, she bumped into a man by accident. "I'm sorry, I didn't see where I was going." She looked up at the man, and the man looked at her. "What is your name?" he asked. "Lee, and yours?" "I am Remus. Nice to meet you."
Chapter 17 Jealousy. Remus Pav.
I don't want to be here. Why should I? The Moon Festival would usually be an event that I would look forward to as a child and adolescent. However, the older I got, and without a mate, the festival was something I despised. I was sure that this year would be the year I would have my mate by my side. However, I wasn't able to smell my mate. I looked at all the villages nearby, but nothing. I was tempted to go to the cities to see if I could find her. However, our stupid laws forbade us. I was tempted to take a woman who wasn't my mate, but many of the women were already taken. I failed this year. I am running out of time. After another failed mate hunt, I stayed on my lonesome and felt depressed. Why was the moon goddess so cruel? Why do we need sense to find our mates? Damn, these laws. Damn, the moon goddess. However, I had to keep my pride and head held high. I decided to go to the festival, and of course, there were many new couples. Jealousy consumed me, but I had to move on forward. I then wondered if my cousin, Romulus, had found a mate. He always had faith in the moon goddess. I finally made it to the main center of the festival, and there were many food stands, small stores, and small stages where couples would dance. I was so deep in thought that I bumped into someone. I stopped as I saw a young woman. I felt my world stop briefly as I looked at her. She was the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. "I'm sorry, I didn't look where I was going," she said. I was stunned and trying to find the right words to say. I shook my head. "What is your name?" "Lee, and yours?" "I'm Remus. Nice to meet you." Remus motioned his hand to shake. Lee was hesitant, but she raised her hand and shook his hand. When Lee wanted her hand back, Remus did not let her go. She felt his hand holding hers, a bit firm yet with a sense of gentleness. Remus flinched a bit and let go of her hand. "Do forgive me, I got a bit carried away." "No problem. So are you a werewolf?" "Yes, I am." "And do you have a mate?" When Lee said those words, she noticed Remus' demeanor change. "No, I don't." Remus sounded bitter, and he knew it. However, he was tired of hiding how he felt. Lee didn't know why, but she felt a hint of sadness. Of course, she was kidnapped herself, but felt terrible for Remus. The young woman felt his loneliness. "Sorry, I shouldn't have asked." Remus looked slightly away. This was my last chance. I am turning 35 soon. I am to become infertile, and I will no longer be able to find a mate. Lee felt her heart beat for him. What a cruel fate for a werewolf to have. Remus may be a creature, but he still has a heart and the desire to have someone beside them. I'm so sorry. I wish there were something I could do, but... She was interrupted when she felt a firm grip on her waist. Lee was pulled beside a robust and muscular body. Romulus. When Lee looked at him, his face held a calm expression. However, she felt anger radiating from his body. Remus, I see you have met my mate. Remus looked surprised. So this is your mate. You are fortunate to have such a beautiful and kind mate, cousin. This surprised the young woman. Wait, you two are cousins, Remus and Romulus? It reminds me of the legend. The cousins were silent but let out chuckles. I haven't seen you in a while, Remus. Are you well? Remus put his hands in his pockets. Not entirely. I wasn't able to get my mate. Romulus felt sad for his cousin. I'm sorry, but you can still have one after age 35. You. But I'm going to become infertile. I won't be able to have children of my own. What's the point of a mate if one can't have children? Some onlookers looked at Remus. He looked away. We'll see other later. With that, Remus walked away. Both Lee and Romulus were left beside each other. Romulus got a hold of her and led her to a part of the woods, far from the festivities. Why did you talk to him? What do you mean? Shouldn't I talk to others? Asked Lee. To other women, yes. Men, no, especially unmated ones. Remus may be my cousin, but he's still an unmated male. Hey, I didn't know Remus was unmated until he told me. Besides, you two are cousins and family. Also, you are not the boss of me, Romulus. I can talk to whoever I want. Romulus did not like what she said. He motioned her farther from the festivities and then pushed her to a tree. He got her hands and put them on top of her head. Lee looked away as she felt his lips by her ear. His breath is tickling her ear. You are mine. You are my life. You are my heart. You are my body. You are my everything. No other man will have you. I will never allow it. You are not to speak with another man. Understand? He got her face and forced her to look at him, putting his lips onto hers. They kissed. Romulus growled in the kiss, enjoying and savoring every moment. Lee felt her body tingling. The kiss to her declared that she was his, and he wanted her to know and feel it. She also realized that the big bad wolf was jealous.
Chapter 18 Excitement. Romulus Puff.
I know I shouldn't feel like this. Remus was my cousin, but I was still angry that he would speak to my mate. Call me jealous and overprotective, but that is the nature of a male werewolf. It is within us. Werewolves can get jealous and competitive, even against their family. Remus and I have seen one another as brothers, but as we grew older, our nature had overcome us. We grew distant for the past years. Remus didn't have a mate, but I did. I couldn't let them get close, or he would try to take her from me. I kissed Lee with all my might to let her know she belonged to me and me alone. I had a desperate need to mark her and make it official. However, I promised Lee that I would give her the choice to accept me. It wasn't easy to hold everything in my power from breaking my promise. As I kissed her, I used my tongue to go inside her tongue. I knew her eyes were still open, but as I suavely moved my lips and tongue, she slowly closed her mouth and let me be in charge. Perfect. I then put my arms around her waist, pulling her body closer. I let out a lowly growl of pleasure. I loved feeling her body to mine. I felt my cock getting hard just by having her close to me. Lee flinched and squeaked within the kiss. When I stopped the kiss, I realized Lee felt my bulge. Lee blushed profusely as she was still in my arms. Lee's face turned bright red, and she looked very adorable. PL, please, let me go. No, you are mine, and I like holding you this way, I said teasingly. Romulus, this is embarrassing. Please. As she squirmed, I could feel her move on my erect cock. A smirk came across my face, and I licked my lips. My nose was on her neck, smelling her beautiful scent while growling. I could hear Lee gulp and hear her heart beat faster with our contact. You smell so beautiful. Your skin is so soft. It turns me on. I slowly lifted her dress, and Lee immediately tried to stop me. I gently laid her on a tree and began kissing her neck. Lee stopped as our bodies were connected. I desperately wanted to rip her dress and take her there and then. I took the chance to lift her skirt, where I glanced at her legs, soft and flawless. However, I stopped before her underwear was exposed. I put her private on my bulge, making her flinch. I knew she could feel me. I began to dry hump her as I felt her underwear slowly. My eyes never left her as her breathing became rapid. She moved her head from left to right. Her eyes were closed as she bit her lower lip. I smirked and licked my lips. Lee looked delectable. My lips then trailed down to her chest. Romulus, I. My hands began to trail to her waist and legs, as soft as I imagined. I wanted to make her come, but we were still in the festival, and the werewolves would smell her scent. When a female is sexually stimulated, her scent becomes noticeable. I couldn't let that happen. You affect me in many ways, my love. How I want to rip that dress off and see your beautiful body. 𝑚𝒔𝒊𝒂𝒚𝒍𝒊𝒐𝒏. We should go back, my love. As much as I want to take you here and now, it would not be wise. I put her back down and grabbed her hand. Let's go on with the festival. The council will soon give out their speech. I wiggled my eyebrows at her. Lee couldn't help but blush.
Chapter 19 Disagreements.
Romulus and Lee went back to the festivities. Lee tried hard to stop blushing. She couldn't believe that she enjoyed what Romulus did to her. Sure, she had boyfriends and touched her, but it never went to last base. She wanted to save herself for someone special. Many of her boyfriends didn't want to wait too long, so they would break up with her. Lee didn't deny that Romulus was handsome and had a body that men would kill for. She was still not ready to have sex yet. She wondered if he would be patient with her. Her thoughts were interrupted when there was an announcement that the council was arriving. Well, that's our cue. Let's go find our seats. The couple and everyone else walked toward the waterfalls, where there were wooden bleachers. Everyone was trying to find a seat. Romulus and Lee sat in the second row. What's going to happen now? Romulus leaned close to her. The council members are going to make a speech. They do this every time the mate hunt ends. They give us their blessings, among other things. It's not going to take long. Everyone in the city found a seat or stood. Everyone was silent as faint footsteps echoed. There were about 4 men, and behind them stood older women who were their mates. Lee tried to contain her chuckle. The male council members appeared to be either Gandalf or Dumbledore. As the council members and their mates got on stage, everyone stood and bowed their heads. Romulus and Lee did the same. As the members and their mates stood on stage, one of the members walked forward and motioned out his right hand. The werewolves sat back down. Fellow werewolves, we bid you all congratulations on finding your mates of this year's mate hunt. You all deserve a round of applause. Everyone began to clap. Lee clapped, but only softly. To the new females, we all welcome you to our world. We know this is new for you, but we welcome you all to our world. We are thankful and indebted to you. The council and I know you will be wonderful mothers to the next generation of werewolves. Mothers? Lee could not believe her ears. The council thought of women as breeding machines. Romulus noticed Lee's demeanor and gently put his hand over hers. He knew that the council had an old-fashioned mentality. However, they thought and cared about the survival of their kind. He knew that he was going to have another talk with Lee. The council members spoke, and the speeches were done within an hour. The occupants were free to continue with the festival. Lee stood up and began to walk away. Romulus walked after her. Lee, don't you want to continue with the festivities? She didn't answer. Romulus knew her answer. Without their knowledge, they were being watched by Remus, who stood far from the festivities. He stood atop a tree, watching Lee walk away from the festival. Seems that he's having a little trouble. Meanwhile, the couple returned home. Romulus closed the doors as he turned on the lights. Lee stood in the living room with her arms crossed. The couple was silent. Romulus sighed as she walked close to Lee, but kept his distance. You're upset about what the council said today. How can I not be? They said we will be great mothers. They view us as breeders for your kind. Romulus noticed the venom in Lee's tone. She was angry. He couldn't blame her. I'm sorry you had to hear that, but believe me when I say this. You're not a breeder to me. I would never force you to give yourself to me. I will wait until you are ready to accept me. You say that, but I know there are laws in your world. Laws that I may disagree with. Kidnapping is one. Lee bit her lower lip. You are kind, Romulus. However, kindness won't be enough. The council might find out about couples who haven't mated or had children. There are laws regarding that, right? The werewolf was silent. I thought so. I don't want to live a life with such restrictions and regulations. I think it's best if we weren't together. Lee couldn't finish as Romulus pushed her down on the couch and got on top of her. He grabbed her hands and put them on top of her. Lee's eyes widened in horror as she saw his eyes change to pitch black. Romulus was angry.
Chapter 20 Conditions.
Lee was pinned on the wall by her shoulders. Romulus was angry. His eyes were pitch black, making him look inhumane. It scared her. She began to shake from the fear she felt. Romulus? He gave out a slight growl. How dare you? Why would you ever mention leaving me alone? Lee's tears began to fall from her eyes. Please let me go. You're scaring me. However, Romulus did not let her go, but his grip on her lessened. His heart felt pain. Lee's words created a deep wound in his heart. The thought of Lee leaving him was unbearable to him. However, when he looked at her and saw her tears, it tore his heart into pieces. Romulus never wanted her to fear him. He let her go. When Lee was free, she got away from him and got to a corner of the room. Romulus whimpered, I'm sorry, Lee. I didn't mean to scare you like that. She did not answer him. He began to walk to her slowly, but Lee went to another corner of the room. Tears began to form in Romulus' eyes. Please, Lee, let me explain. Please, Romulus, let me go. I want to go home to see my grandmother and my parents. I don't want you to leave me. I waited so long to have you by my side. I love you, Lee. I would die if you left. His tears began to fall. Lee saw Romulus cry. It saddened her heart, but the need to go home overwhelmed her. She was about to speak, but Romulus spoke. I can understand how you feel. I know I took you away from your home and everything you own. I am selfish. I will admit it to you, and I am sorry. However, try to understand my situation. I had been alone for so long, desperate to find my mate. I never asked to be born in the life of a werewolf. I didn't ask the moon goddess to make me infertile at a certain age. My dream is to have a family, live a life, and die with the woman I love. It was silent between the couple. I will take you to see your grandmother. This caught Lee's full attention. Really? Romulus wiped off his tears. Yes, I will let you see her, even though it is against the laws of our kind, but I want to see you happy. Lee felt happiness in her heart. However, I have conditions. Okay. Once we see her, you will stay by my side until the end of our days. Will you agree? Lee's heartbeat became nervous. Her decision was going to decide the fate of her life. However, she could find ways of convincing him. I accept. Romulus smiled, walked, and hugged her. Lee did not move away. Since you agreed, there is something that I must do to seal our agreement. She looked at him. What do you? Lee did not finish her sentence. Romulus sunk his teeth into her neck. The impact made her body feel weak before entering a dark abyss. Mine.
Chapter 21 Truth.
It was morning, and Romulus was awake. He felt the sun's rays refreshing. He looked beside him, and a smile crept on his lips. Lee slept soundly beside him. The sun's rays hit her face, and she slowly opened her eyes and stretched. Is it already morning? She asked. He nodded. It is. Good morning, my love. Morning. Lee sat up as she felt the cold morning chill. Are we almost there? Romulus smiled. Yes, my love. We will almost arrive at your grandmother's house. First, let's eat breakfast. But what are we going to eat? Romulus closed his eyes and moved his ears a bit, and without warning, he used his speed to go to many of the trees. Lee was shocked at his pure speed. A few seconds later, he returned with things on his arm. What do you have there? Romulus smiled and showed what he held. Eggs. Eggs? Where did you get them? The trees. Many birds lay eggs, but I chose the ones without chicks. Also in his hands were pieces of wood to make a fire. Lee watched him put the wood together, creating a fire, cracking the eggs on a long stone, and putting them near the fire. When the eggs were ready, Romulus got a piece of cooked egg and motioned it to Lee. A blush came across her cheeks. She blew on the piece and slowly ate the piece of the egg. Both ate with a bit of conversation between them. When they finished their breakfast, they began to move. "You know, if you are fast, you could take us to my grandmother. I like the time we have together. Life is short. It is no use in going fast." Lee giggled. "I know you don't want to take me to my grandmother's home, but you kept your promise, and I will keep mine to you." She gave him a peck on his cheek. The werewolf felt his face becoming warm. He carried his mate in his arms as he walked through many trees and hills. An hour passed. They saw the village. It looked empty. Romulus put Lee down. She ran toward the village. He walked behind her, but made sure to keep her in sight. Lee was worried that her grandmother was gone, or worse, dead. Isla's house was spotted from afar, and Lee ran toward it. Before she could get to it, Romulus grabbed her waist, pulling her close. "Remember our deal, my love. We are only here to visit, and we are going back home." His face got closer to hers. "Don't speak things she does not need to know. Understand?" Lee could sense possessiveness in his voice. She sighed. "Promise." The two got in front of the door, and Lee opened it. The house was dark. There was no sound. "There was nothing. It seems that your grandmother is not here. We must leave," said Romulus. "Wanting to take my granddaughter away again," said a feminine voice. Both flinched and looked in the bedroom's direction. It was Isla. She slowly left her room. Her hair was slightly in disarray, and her clothes were wrinkled. Lee felt tears forming in her eyes. "Gee, grandmother, you are okay." She got out of Romulus' grip and went to the older woman. They hugged. Romulus felt irked that his mate was hugging another, even if it was her family. However, he knew that he couldn't be entirely selfish. "I thought you were hurt," said Lee. "I am here and alive." Isla glared at Romulus. "You took my granddaughter away from our family. I had to lie to her parents that Lee wanted to stay for a while longer. I couldn't fathom telling them the truth." She spat toward him. "You monster." "I didn't hurt her, if that is what you are implying." He felt anger, but Lee's grandmother couldn't be blamed for feeling that way. Tension was felt between the two. Lee cleared her throat. "Well, I am here now and wanted to see that you were okay. By the way, what happened to the other villagers?" Isla sighed as she sat on one of her sofas. "Many of them left and went to the city. They are still investigating the disappearances of their daughters, their children." Her glare at Romulus never wavered. "You werewolves always cause trouble, breaking families." Romulus felt annoyed. "Like you know how we feel and what we must live through. The women are well and safe. We love and cherish them." "We love and cherish? Do all of them think of their mate's happiness? Would you even allow them to see their families? Throughout your kind's history, not one woman that had been kidnapped has returned. You werewolves are monsters." Romulus stopped momentarily. He was so angry that he almost missed the part where Isla mentioned his kind. "Wait, how would you even know us?" The young woman looked at her grandmother and heard her say, "Werewolves. Grandmother, you know about their kind, do you?" A scoff escaped her lips. "I have lost my daughter to your kind." Lee and Romulus were stunned. "What?" Everyone was silent in the house. Lee walked forward. "What do you mean, your daughter? I thought my mother was your only child." Isla shook as she slowly sat on the nearby sofa. The older woman put her arms around herself. "I never told anyone. Not even your mother knew that she had an older sister. My eldest, Felina, was 16 at the time." Lee was in shock, as was Romulus. "I remember how Felia was, so young and beautiful. She was beloved by many and was so innocent. She was timid around men, but was very focused on her education. Many men would ask her out, but she would refuse them all. Yet one day, everything changed." "It was the mate hunt, wasn't it?" asked Romulus. Slowly, Isla glared at Romulus. "Mate hunt. You and your kind have no shame, stealing girls away from home, families, and futures." Romulus was getting annoyed. "We don't hurt them. We provide everything they need. We love them until our last dying breath, something you humans have trouble even within your kind. Isla stood, and Lee got closer to her grandmother, afraid that she would do something that she might regret. Love? Isla gave out a laugh. You lie. My daughter was found dead. Your kind killed her. Lee and Romulus were aghast. What are you talking about, grandmother? Isla turned as she put her arms around herself. That night, Philia was kidnapped by a werewolf. I will never forget her screams when she asked for my husband and me. Many of us in the village never found our daughters. My husband and I never gave up. We looked for months until it turned into a year. Until she was found. Tears formed in the elder's eyes. A man brought her to us and said she was found in the mountains. The werewolf scratched her so terribly that she was almost unrecognizable. Yet, I will never forget that man. He looked distraught. I tried to find him, but have never seen him again. Romulus then flinched and was quiet for a moment. It was a possibility that the man who brought your daughter back to you was the one who took her. He would have never harmed her. There was the possibility that another werewolf wanted her, but was stopped, but not before killing her as revenge. He shook his head. Now that I think about it, my father told me the story. The rival werewolf was consumed with jealousy and waited until the one who took your daughter wasn't home. The rival tried to take and force himself upon her, but her mate returned, and well, you know the rest. Lee was stunned by everything she was hearing. What ended up happening to the two werewolves? The rival werewolf was killed, and the other probably committed suicide. That's what usually happens when a werewolf's mate is killed. The young woman put her arms around herself. Everything was hard to process, but she was conflicted about what would happen next. She did promise Romulus that she would return, but it was her chance to escape and be with her grandmother. Lee didn't know what to do or think.
Chapter 22 Night.
Everyone was silent, and Isla noticed it would get dark soon. So, what will happen now? Lee and Romulus looked at one another. Romulus, would it be okay to stay here for the night? I want to spend a little more time with my grandmother. The werewolf was hesitant. He worried they would be caught leaving to the human world. However, Lee did give her word that they would return to the werewolf society. That would be fine, if that makes you happy. Isla trembled in anger. That dog will not sleep in my house. All the other houses are empty. He can sleep in one of the houses of the families that suffered the pain of losing their child. Romulus was about to respond, but Lee looked at him and shook her head. He growled and left the house, leaving his granddaughter and grandmother alone. Grandmother, why didn't you tell me? It's something I don't like talking about. No one would have believed me or your grandfather, especially your parents. Isla was silent for a while. Did he hurt you? He scared me a bit since he kidnapped me, but never physically caused pain. Isla took hold of her granddaughter's hands. I'm glad you are safe and alive. I had to lie to your parents about your disappearance, and now you come home. Lee sighed. Now it's complicated, grandmother. Now that Romulus is in my life, I am not sure that things will be as they were once before. You're not thinking of going back with that monster. He's not a monster, grandmother. The older woman's eyes widened. She felt that Romulus had done something to her granddaughter. He took you away from your own will. He brought me here to see you, something that is against the laws of his kind, something he could get in trouble for. He is only doing that just to get through your head. Enough, Lee snapped at her grandmother. I'm sorry that my aunt was lost. There are always two sides to each story. We don't know how she felt when kidnapped and towards the werewolf who took her from her livelihood. Lee stood. We will make dinner, and I'm going to Romulus to give him his plate. The older woman was silent and wanted to argue, but stopping her granddaughter would be pointless. She couldn't call the police since they wouldn't believe her. Isla didn't know where the two were hiding. Lee wouldn't tell her. Isla knew it would be her granddaughter's choice. We will get dinner ready. Grandmother and granddaughter made dinner and ate with one another with small, light talk. However, Lee felt tension between them. It wouldn't be the same anymore. However, she made her decision. Once they finished, Lee got a plate for Romulus and left her grandmother's house. She was looking through the empty houses for Romulus. "Romulus," she called out, but there was no answer. She looked over the small village, and from afar she saw a cave and light. Lee immediately ran to the cave, and once there, saw Romulus sitting by a fire, looking at it intently. "Romulus." He didn't look at her. Lee slowly walked into the cave, and when she did, rain began to pour down little by little. She got close to him, but not too close to where she was in his personal space. "Romulus, please look at me." The werewolf still did not give her his attention, which annoyed the young woman. Lee was about to speak, but Romulus spoke. "What do you think of me, Lee?" "What do you mean?" "What I mean is that what do you think of me?" Romulus finally gave her his attention. "Do you see me as a monster?" Lee was shocked at his question. "Is it what my grandmother said that made you ask me this? Are you still angry that I kidnapped you?" "A bit, but I can understand why you did it." It was silent between the two, but Romulus broke the silence. "Do you want to be with your grandmother?" Lee gasped. What? "Do you want to be back with your family?" She could not answer. There was a part of her that was happy but simultaneously hesitant. Did Romulus have remorse? She gulped and sat next to him. "Romulus, I do miss my family, but I got to know more about you, and well." Lee could not finish her sentence. "I am selfish, and I always was, Lee. I'm scared, Lee. I'm scared that my selfishness will lead you to unhappiness and—" He did not finish since Lee slapped him across the face, which shocked him. "Stop it, Romulus. Are you going to let my grandmother get the best of you? But if that is what you feel about me, I will leave you." She got up and began to walk out of the cave, and the rain began to drench her. As Lee kept walking, she felt a heavy weight on her body, making her lose her stance and fall into the mud. Lee turned her body, and Romulus was on top of her. Before she could respond, he immediately put his lips on hers. Lee tensed. She could not react, but his lips upon her felt so right. She put her arms around him, and they kissed as the rain hit them. They separated. "I don't want you to leave. I love you, and that is the truth. All I want is your happiness." "Romulus." She was then carried bridal style and was led back to the cave. Romulus then laid her down and got on top of her. "I want to make love to you, to show you how I truly feel." Lee blushed and felt her womanhood tense in excitement. She nodded. Romulus began to take all his wet clothing off his muscular, damp body. Lee felt herself drool at the sight of him. He had all the attributes that any woman could dream of. Romulus got a hold of her clothing. "May I?" All she could do was nod. Slowly, Romulus began to take off her clothing, her bra, and then her underwear. Lee was still wet but bare. Romulus' eyes marveled at her body and felt his cock becoming erect at the very sight. He breathed heavily. His eyes turned black from the lust. As for Lee, she covered her face in embarrassment. Romulus got her hands off her face and smiled gently at her. "I want you to look at me. You are beautiful." He lowered himself and kissed her passionately, and Lee did the same. She felt him growl within the kiss, and the two broke it to catch their breaths. Romulus put her small hands on his chest, wanting her to touch him. Lee loved the feeling of his body. His skin was beautiful, and she felt her maidenhood getting wet from the touch. Her eyes trailed down to his six-pack, and then his pride. Romulus noticed, and a slight smirk came across his lips. "Touch me." She felt her heart beating faster. Her hands slowly left his chest and trailed down to his six-pack, and then to his proud cock. Lee hesitated, but the want to touch him overcame her. With her right hand, she touched his cock, which felt so soft. "So big, I don't think it will fit." "Oh, it will. I promise you that." Romulus got a hold of his cock and put it between her breasts. Lee caught on and pressed her breasts on his cock, which earned her a moan from him. He began to buck his hips and thrust within her breast. Romulus groaned. Pleasure filled his cock as he eyed her. Lee looked flush but seemed to be enjoying him. He motioned for her to let go, which she did, but what surprised him was when Lee pushed him onto the ground. Lee got on top of him and kissed his lips. Desperately, Her breasts were on his chest. She trailed her lips down from his neck to his chest, and then to his cock. Lee kissed the tip, which made him buck up his hips. She opened her mouth and slowly swallowed parts of his cock, even though she had never done such a thing. Romulus growled in anticipation as he felt her soft mouth devouring his cock. Lee bobbed her head up and down. He breathed heavily, not being able to restrain himself any longer. He got his cock out of her mouth and laid her under him and spread her legs. "You're wet already, are you?" "Yes, I have never done it before." "It will hurt, but the pain will be brief." He positioned himself and put the tip of his cock inside her, already feeling her walls squeezing him. As he got in more profound, he felt her barrier, and with one swift motion, he put his entire length inside her. Lee felt the impact and the pain. "Ugh, it hurts." Tears formed, and she moved her body. Romulus, it hurts." He felt her walls squeezing him so hard that it was a bit painful, but pleased him beyond belief. He wanted to love her, watch her pleasure, and see her breast bounce with every thrust he made. "It will pass, I promise," he said hoarsely. Lee silently cried as Romulus kissed her to help her with the pain. As time progressed, Lee felt the pain subside and felt pleasure she had never felt before in her entire life. "Romulus, please." He didn't need to be told twice, and he slowly moved his cock inside her, her walls clinging on to him desperately. His sack touched her entrance, and he then began to move faster. "Ooh, Romulus, it feels so good," Lee moaned as she wrapped her legs around his hips. "You feel good, my love." Romulus put her arms around him and stood up, still holding and still inside her. He began to thrust upward into her, making him go deeper inside. "Oh my goodness!" Romulus thrust inside her as if he was impaling her. Saliva dripped from Lee's lips. The tremendous pleasure was so much that she could not keep up with her hold. She let go. Her breast faced Romulus, making him lose control. He began to thrust deeper and faster, and her breasts bounced up and down. His eyes were pitch black, and his teeth grew. It was as if he was about to turn into werewolf form. He then laid down, but Lee was on top of him. She could not move, for she no longer had the strength. Romulus thrust upwards, his sack still hitting her. Tears fell from Lee's eyes. The pleasure was too much for her. She came on his cock, but it didn't stop him. Romulus, 𝒔𝒊𝒐𝒏. He went faster and harder, hitting her pleasure spot, and felt her coming more than twice, and he thought he was near. He turned, making Lee beneath him. His thrusts became erratic, his ball sack slapping her as roughly. "Lee, I am going to come." Seconds later, he released his semen inside her. Both were screaming with pleasure and satisfaction they had never felt in their entire lives. They were finally one.
Chapter 23 The Shower.
Morning arrived, and Romulus woke up before Lee. He couldn't believe what he did. He marked Lee. The werewolf promised to wait until Lee accepted him, but things have changed. Romulus pledged to his mate that he would go and take her to see her grandmother. They both would break many laws, which could affect them both. However, he was willing to take the risk. Once he bit her, Lee fainted, which happens when a werewolf marks their mate. When a werewolf marks their mate, he gives her parts of his spirit, which would overflow her body. Lee slept all night. The mark on her neck was apparent. Romulus gave her neck a slight peck. He got up and went to take a shower. Once inside the bathroom, he removed his clothes, exposing his muscular body. Once the shower was on, he went inside, and the hot water hit his body, relaxing him. Romulus closed his eyes. The image of Lee came to him, and a smile came to his face. He imagined her wearing a plain white dress and lying on the bed, her hair sprawled on the pillows. She wore no bra or underwear. Romulus then imagined her skirt being lifted, where her legs are seen as her maidenhood. Lee's eyes were open, and she looked at him with a gentle smile. She extended her hands, motioning him to go to her. "Please take me. Have me. Make me yours." Her hand went to her chest. Romulus grabbed the upper part of her dress, pulling it down. Her breast bounced out. This excited him. He couldn't take it. He opened his eyes and breathed heavily. He looked around and realized that he was still in the shower. "I can't believe I imagined that in the shower." Romulus looked down and saw his cock erect. Veins were visible on his cock, and pre-cum dripped from his head. Damn, just the image of her makes me excited. He didn't want to masturbate when he was a few feet away from Lee. He put his arms and head on the shower walls, breathing heavily. Happy thoughts, he told himself. He tried counting imaginary sheep or thinking of something else. It was useless. He knew it was almost the full moon, and the need to mate would become strong. Romulus was getting hornier each day. Since he had his mark on her, it would make his impulses stronger and worse. I shouldn't have bitten her. His erect cock wouldn't lessen down, and he put his hand on it and began to stroke himself. Romulus moaned, and he put his head on the wall. He would touch himself so many times before he met Lee. He kept stroking himself and breathed heavily, but quietly. Lee, Lee. Romulus would repeat her name many times. He would pretend that she was the one giving him the pleasure, and he was feeling close to his release. He came on the shower wall. He looked at his cum that was dripping down and washed it off. I hope what I have done was the right decision. Romulus came out of the shower, dried himself, and changed. He went to the kitchen to cook them breakfast until Lee was ready to wake from her slumber.
Chapter 24 Permanent.
Romulus finished cooking breakfast for himself and Lee. He took a tray carrying both their food and returned to his room. Lee was still asleep. He sat on a chair beside the bed and began eating breakfast, waiting for Lee to wake up. About 10 minutes later, Lee began to wake up slowly. She moaned as she opened her eyes. What happened? Slowly, she began to sit up and looked around as her sight became more apparent. Then she stopped as she set her eyes on Romulus. She backed away from him. Why you? What did you do to me? He stood up and put his hands in his pockets. I made you permanently mine. What do you mean by that? I marked you. Lee sat. Confusion overwhelmed her. She did not know what he meant or what occurred. She felt a bit of pain in her neck. Lee touched it and felt bumps. That was when she remembered what had happened. Romulus bit her. You bit me. You bit me. Romulus nodded, and a small smile came on his face. I did. I promised myself I would have waited for your consent, but everything didn't go as planned, so I had to take drastic measures. Why? I promised to take you to your grandmother, but I know you are quite intelligent. I can't risk you trying to run away or for us to get separated. Romulus put the tray in front of Lee. Why was that even necessary? When a werewolf marks his mate, they are connected. They can sense one another even from afar. If you did try to escape, I would be able to know exactly where you are and where you are headed. Also, you won't stop begging me to take you to see your grandmother. What we are about to do is break many laws in our society. It would be only fair if I got what I wanted. The young woman was silent as she looked at her breakfast. She slowly touched her neck and felt the bite mark. To her surprise, her skin healed but felt a few bumps. Lee knew she was officially Romulus' mate, and there was no way to escape her fate. Yet, she knew that Romulus decided to take risks for her to see her grandmother. I know you are mad, but look at the bright side. You will be able to see your grandmother. For now, I need to do some planning. We can't be seen leaving the city. If we were caught, it would lead to drastic consequences, even death. We will leave tonight.
Chapter 25 Forward.
Lee was infuriated beyond doubt, but on the other hand, she was a bit grateful that she would see her grandmother. It was the night at the moment. Romulus told her it was best to leave. He knew there were guards, but since he worked as a guard, he knew many secret pathways to leave the city. The werewolf also knew many of the schedules the guards abided by. When it was time to leave, Romulus carried Lee bridal style. She wouldn't be able to catch up with him due to the differences in speed. At 11 p.m., they left the house. Romulus carried his mate through different parts of the city. As they went through many homes, Lee couldn't help but hear certain noises from many homes. Groans and moans. Many couples were having sex. Lee would put her hand on her ears and close her eyes. Romulus noticed, and a slight chuckle came out of his throat. He, too, heard the sounds coming from the homes of his brethren. The full moon was almost arriving, and many were restless. Their need for their mates is so great that they cannot wait for the day to come and start to mate with their partners. He had to admit that he wanted to mate with Lee, but wanted their first time together to be very special. He ran as fast as he could. Romulus did not want to risk getting caught. There would be consequences if both he and Lee were. However, he knew Lee would get restless if she could not see her grandmother. He did this for her. They couldn't go through the waterfall because it would have created a lot of noise, so he decided to climb. The walls were sturdy and challenging to climb, but Romulus wasn't deterred. He asked Lee to hold on to him, which she did. Romulus looked both ways, and there was no one in sight, so Get began to climb on the wall. Lee also put her legs around his waist so she wouldn't fall. She noticed Romulus struggle, but he kept focused. She believed in him. It felt like an eternity, but they eventually reached the top and saw the other end. Trees, hills, and mountains. "We made it," she looked at Romulus. "You did it. You were amazing." She kissed him on the cheek. Romulus blushed and gave out a gentle smile. "Yes, love. We are in your world now, just as promised. Hold on to me. We're going to have to climb down." Lee nodded as she held onto Romulus. He slid down the rocks and waterfall, but jumped toward nearby trees. Romulus ensured that he and Lee were far from the waterfall, and when they were, Romulus jumped to the ground and put Lee down for a moment. "Romulus, I can walk, you know. You did enough, and you need rest. It can be dangerous out here. I don't mind carrying you until we are safe." Surprisingly, Lee did not protest, and she let him hold her. Both said nothing as Romulus kept walking forward with Lee in his arms. The couple felt content, happy, and warm in each other's embrace under the moon. The night air was cold. What surprised Lee was that she felt warm even with the chill. Aren't you cold?" Romulus looked at her and gave out a soft smile. "Not at all. Since I am a werewolf, the elements don't affect me. Are you cold?" She shook her head. "It's strange. I'm not cold at all. Since you are close to my body, my warmth keeps you warm. That is one of the reasons why I'm still carrying you, my love." Lee couldn't help but blush again. "Whenever I tell you something sweet, you blush. You look adorable." She looked away as Romulus walked. What seemed like an endless trail, he stopped. "I think we should stop for now. We should rest since we still have a long way to go." He walked higher to a hill and let her down. Romulus then chopped some firewood and made a fire for them both. Lee knew that Romulus could have taken them back to the village in an hour or two, but she felt Romulus wanted to spend time with her. She decided not to say anything. They broke many laws. Romulus looked exhausted from the climbing and running. He deserved a break. They sat next to each other in front of the fire. Lee looked at the moon. "It is so beautiful." Romulus looked up. "Yes, it is. I wanted to say thank you again. I know you risked being here because of me. However, I promise to keep my word and always be with you." The werewolf raised his eyebrows. "Well, look at this. You changed so suddenly." "Well, I have to keep my word as you keep yours, although you did break some promises." "Hey, it's not my fault that I am a werewolf." The two discussed throughout the night and eventually fell asleep in each other's arms. Tomorrow was going to be another day. Meanwhile, Remus is in his room in the werewolf society, and darkness surrounds him. He lay on his bed, deep in thought. He wasn't able to have his mate this year. He felt betrayed by the moon goddess. Remus thought that the goddess took the opportunity to have a mate by his side, someone he could hold, someone who could give him the family that he always wanted. His heart clenched painfully. He never felt so alone. Why? He asked himself. Remus got off the bed and opened the window of his room. His eyes stared at the moon almost in a hateful manner. "Why, moon goddess? Why have you forsaken me?" He punched the wall so hard that it made a hole. It was still silent. Remus heard only the crickets. Then his thoughts went back to Lee. To him, she was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Remus was envious of his cousin. He felt that Romulus always had the luck he wanted. Remus firmly believed that Romulus did not deserve such a woman as Lee. That's when he decided that tomorrow morning, Remus would visit Lee. He wanted to see more of her. He didn't care if he was going to anger his cousin. Remus had a plan. The plan was to get Lee for himself.
Chapter 26 Betrayed.
The couple finished their breakfast, and it was time to leave. Everyone was outside. Isla and Lee hugged one another. "Lee, you always have a home here. Whenever you want to return, I will wait for you. I will try to tell your parents something." The women separated from the hug. "Thank you, grandmother. Please take care, and thank you for understanding." She went to Romulus. Isla and Romulus eyed one another. Isla glared at him but said nothing. Romulus did the same. He knew that Isla was hurt and didn't blame her for acting cold toward him. However, he promised himself that he would take care and give Lee all the happiness in the world. The couple eventually left. Lee felt terrible for leaving her grandmother, but couldn't leave Romulus. Romulus changed into his werewolf form when they were far away from the abandoned village. With his new form, it was much faster for them to return to the werewolf world. They both passed many trees and mountains, but she knew Romulus was cautious. Lee felt peace as they passed trees and mountains, or were in mid-air. She felt safe and warm being with Romulus. It was already mid-afternoon, and they arrived at the waterfall. Romulus changed back into his human form, and he was nude. The young woman blushed as she handed him his clothing. "You can look, my love. It's not like you haven't seen this before. I want to respect your privacy, that's all." Romulus chuckled as he put on clothes and held his mate's hand. He then chanted the words, and the waterfall opened. They walked within the path until they saw the light at the trail's end. They made it to the other side and the werewolf world. Nightfall had already hit, and they saw the villages from afar. "Let's go, my love. We must be careful," said Romulus. He then carried Lee, bridal style, and ran through the forest towards the city where the building was lit. No one was in sight. The couple couldn't help but feel uneasy as they kept on walking through the streets toward their home. They got closer and closer, but Romulus stopped. "What's wrong, Romulus?" "I sense something in our home." Lee held Romulus and felt nervous. Suddenly, werewolves appeared around them, and some came out from their home. Romulus had Lee closer to him and growled, "What is the meaning of this?" None of the other werewolves answered, and then a couple of 4 older men walked forward. They were the werewolf elders and were not happy. "Romulus, we have been told that you and your mate have broken the law of our kind. You know that once a werewolf finds a mate, they can no longer return to the human world." Romulus growled, and Lee felt afraid. "None of you have proof that my mate and I broke the law." "That is where you are wrong. Another told us of your absence." Lee gasped, and Romulus flinched. "Who?" The couple heard footsteps. Lee and Romulus were shocked at who the person was. "It can't be Remus." Remus stepped forward as he crossed his arms. "Yes, cousin, it was me." Romulus could not believe his eyes. He never would have imagined that his cousin would betray him. "No, it can't be. Why would you?" "You broke the law, cousin. Nothing more. You could have put our world in danger." Another elder stepped forward. "Since Remus informed us of the news, you and your mate are to be put into custody. Guards, arrest them." Lee was horrified while Romulus held her. "No, I will not let any of you take her away from me." The other werewolves got a hold of Lee and Romulus, separating them from one another. Lee screamed as she was being taken away, and Romulus was tied. His eyes never left Lee as she was taken farther. He then glared at his cousin, the one whom he trusted. "Remus." Remus said nothing. He turned and walked away. Romulus struggled to escape his brethren's grip, but it was useless. His brethren overpowered him. All he thought was his mate, Lee. The two were taken to the prisons that were far from the city. The couple were in separate parts of the prison. It was dark and silent. Lee was in a cell. Her hands were chained. Deep down, she felt lost and scared but feared for Romulus. Her thoughts were interrupted when footsteps came her way. She saw one person she did not want to see. "What are you doing here, Remus?" Remus stood silently before her. His eyes were emotionless. It sent a chill on Lee's spine. "I wanted to see how you were doing." Lee glared at him. Her anger was obsolete. To see how I'm doing. How dare you come before me after what you have done? You betrayed your cousin. You make me sick. Her voice echoed throughout the prisons. Remus didn't flinch in the slightest. Betrayed you? That you are mistaken. Both of you broke the laws of our people. I did what had to be done. Romulus shouldn't be punished. I pressured him to take me home. Lee hugged herself. If anyone should be punished as me, not Romulus. She felt tears form in her eyes, and then she realized something. The young woman remembered her conversation with Remus on the day of the festivities. Her eyes widened when she looked at Remus. Why, you're jealous of your cousin, aren't you? This is what all this is. You don't want him to have the happiness you don't have. Jealous? Remus began to laugh. His laughs became louder, and echoes were heard throughout the prison. Yes, he has you, his mate. Look at me. I have no one by my side. The moon goddess has been cruel to me. She hasn't given me any mate. What have I done not to earn someone to love? Why? He shook his head as his laughs died down. It won't matter any more. There will be a trial for you both. I will ask for my reward. Why, you're not thinking. You are sick in the head, Remus. There is no way in hell that I will be your mate. I would rather die. There was no emotion on Remus' face. Your anger and hatred don't matter. What matters is having you, which will be soon enough. I will see you both at the trial. Remus walked away from Lee's cell. Lee felt her heart break at the thought of being with Remus. It would destroy her. However, her main concern was the trial and Romulus' fate. The young woman cried, Romulus!
Chapter 27 Trial.
A week passed, and the werewolf community heard of Romulus and Lee's doings. Everyone in the community headed to court. All had to attend. The elders wanted the werewolves and their mates to see the consequences of breaking the law. Romulus was taken out of his cell. He only had his pants on, which were ripped and dirty. His body was filled with scars and bruises from the beatings he received. The week has been hell for him, not because of the physical pain, but because of the pain of not being with Lee. Romulus didn't know if she was alive. The guards wouldn't speak to him about his mate. He was being taken out of his cell and outside the prison. Many citizens saw him and his condition. They looked at him with either pity or disappointment. It didn't matter for Romulus. All he wanted was Lee. The young werewolf was being taken away from the village to a path that led towards a sizable stone-made building that looked medieval. The outside of the building was only lit by torches of fire that other guards held. The guards opened the heavy wooden doors and led Romulus inside. The interior was shrouded by a bit of darkness. Only the torches of fire lit the way. It seemed like one would walk on an endless path to the abyss. Once the doors were opened, a vast room had ample space. There was a substantial stage-like platform with 3 oversized chairs in the middle of the stage. On the right side were wooden benches where others could sit to see the trial. His brethren led Romulus inside, and then the villagers followed. The male werewolves were also with their mates, and held them close as they went inside to get a spot for themselves. Romulus had his hands chained to the ground, making him unable to move. As more villagers got inside the courthouse, Romulus saw his cousin. Remus entered, walked up to the stage, and stood by the chairs. Romulus glared at his cousin with so much hate and rage. He growled at him, but Remus paid no attention to him. When all the villagers entered, they heard footsteps coming into the courthouse. Romulus looked at the entrance, and his eyes became filled with relief. He saw Lee in a plain, long-sleeved white dress. Her hair was longer and in disarray. The guards led Lee inside, and tears formed when she saw Romulus. She tried to go to him as Romulus tried to go to her. The guards held onto them to keep them in their place. The couple's hands were shackled, and the guards connected the chains to the ground. The two looked at one another with relief and joy to see one another. However, their small, joyous occasion was interrupted when one of the guards commanded that all the witnesses rise. 4 elders entered the courtroom and took their seats. The trial was about to begin as Marcus and the other elders, Francis, Baymount, and Demius, sat in their respective seats. Far from them were their mates who sat in the seats that were apart from them. "You may all take your seats," said one of the guards. The werewolves and their mates did as they were told. All were silent. The elders eyed Romulus and Lee with disdain and disappointment. Lee looked at the elders. She never thought they looked so intimidating. However, she would glance at Romulus, whose eyes never wavered from the elders. He was fearless. "Romulus, you and your mate have broken many laws of our kind. You knew it was against our laws to leave to the human world. The only reason our kind goes to the human world is to find our mates, so our species can prosper," said Marcus. His voice was loud and full of authority. Romulus glared at the elders. When he was a child, he was raised to believe that the elders knew everything and thought of the greater good of their kind. The elders needed to keep stability, but they exaggerated everything that went against their beliefs. "You have also risked our world for returning to the human world. It would have been catastrophic," yelled Elder Demius, 59. "Do you know what could have happened?" asked Baymount. Then the elder Francis, the youngest of the elders, 44, spoke. "Romulus, what was your reason for leaving for the human world?" he asked gently. Romulus looked at Elder Francis, the most understanding elder among them. Even though he was young, he was still considered wise. "Elders, I only thought of my mate's well-being. Since her grandmother is elderly, my mate was very worried. I couldn't stand to see her in such a state." Marcus pounded on the side of his seat. "That was the only reason. Do you realize what you have done? Someone could have followed you. Your mate's grandmother could tell others of our location." "No, she won't. Her grandmother knew about our kind long before. Her daughter was once taken by one of the werewolves of the past. We all know about the story, the one killed due to jealousy and desperation. Her grandmother doesn't even know where our community is. She let her granddaughter go." Romulus looked at tear-stricken Lee. "Our laws have caused so much pain and suffering, especially to our mates. We have taken our mates from their families. The family's only wish is to be reunited with their daughters, or at least know that they are alive." The onlookers spoke to one another. The human females were silent or crying. "Silence at the court! Silence!" ordered the guards. All were silent once again. The elders were shocked that Romulus raised his voice at Marcus. "Elders!" Everyone was silent, and all eyes were on Lee. The young woman looked at Romulus and then at the elders. "Romulus only thought of my well-being, and I then realized that he truly loves me. If anyone is to be blamed, it is me. I don't want Romulus to suffer because of me." Lee bowed and put her face to the ground as if pleading. "Please, punish me if you have to." "No, she is not to blame. Punish or kill me if necessary, but please keep Lee from harm's way. I will take all the blame." Remus then stepped in. "Elders, Romulus has broken our laws. Lee does not have much blame since she is just a human ruled by her emotions. Romulus should have known better." "Enough. The other elders and I will try to come up with a verdict. All should come back within the hour, and it will be done," said Elder Marcus. All 3 elders stood and left, as did the witnesses. The guards took Lee and Romulus to their cells to await their verdict, and Remus stayed behind.
Chapter 28 Verdict.
Romulus and Lee were in 2 separate cells opposite from one another. Their hands and legs were chained so they could not try to escape. The 2 looked at one another, worried for the other's well-being. "Lee, I am glad you are safe and well. I just wished that you didn't defend me in that trial. I am more concerned about your well-being and your freedom," said Romulus. The young woman looked at her mate and was saddened by the look of his appearance. He looked destroyed. "Why shouldn't I? You are my mate and my love. You would have done the same thing if you were in my position. You and I are no different when defending the one they love." The 2 stood up, and even though they were in different cells and were chained up, they walked up the farthest they could to get a good look at one another. Lee began to tear up. "This is all my fault. I shouldn't have pressured you to take me to my grandmother's. I risked everything because of my selfishness. I'm so sorry, Romulus." "Please don't cry, my love. It pains me to see you cry for something so small. You're not the only one who is selfish. We all want what is best for us and our survival. It is natural for many beings. Yet, when one is in love, nothing else matters but to protect and to satisfy the ones we love." Lee and Romulus looked at one another. "I never would have imagined that your cousin Remus would do such a thing. Trust me when I tell you, Romulus, I have no interest or feeling for that bastard. I know, my love. I cannot find the right words to express how betrayed I feel. My cousin is trying to take you away from me. I would rather die than let him do that. I will do anything to keep you by my side. When Li was about to respond, 4 guards entered the prison, unlocked the cells, and got a hold of the 2 prisoners. The guards led the 2 into the courtroom, and all the witnesses and the elders were present. As for Remus, he stood with the other witnesses in the courtroom, excited to know the elders' verdict. The guards put Li and Romulus in their place and kept an eye on them. The elders entered and took their seats, looking at the accused. Marcus was the only one who stood, and all were silent to know the verdict finally. The elders and I have decided, and this is what it will be. Everyone held their breath. Both of you are banished from our society and are to live in the human world for the rest of your days. None of you are welcome back to our society. Many gasped, but Romulus and Li were happy beyond belief. Both were still to be together. However, Romulus, your wolf will be extracted from you, and you will be an ordinary human. Only if you accept this will you and Li be able to go to the human world. Will you accept this verdict? Without hesitation, Romulus and Li accepted the verdict. Remus, however, was not happy with the verdict. Eventually, he and the onlookers were sent out of the building for the extraction to be done in private. Li was led out of the meeting hall. Bodyguards surrounded Romulus, and before him were the elders, reminding him of the verdict handed out to him and his mate. He will no longer be a werewolf but a human. To his surprise, it did not bother him. His love for Li would never change, and as long as he had her, he wanted nothing else in life. One of the elders began to chant a spell and extended his hand toward Romulus. He started to glow in a golden light and float in mid-air. He then began to feel pain throughout his body, a pain that he had never felt before. Romulus then felt a painful force coming out of his body. He saw pitch black for a few seconds, then regained his vision. Shocked, he saw the image of his wolf floating in mid-air. His wolf's eyes were filled with sadness. "I'm so sorry," Romulus told his wolf. Then, his wolf howled, and the elders motioned the essence of his wolf into a small handmade container and locked the wolf inside. Romulus fell onto the ground and felt empty. He was no longer a werewolf. He was now human. "Am I free to go?" he whispered. "Before you and your mate go, there is still one more thing that we must do." Meanwhile, Li was waiting outside the meeting hall. Some guards were watching her. She waited anxiously for Romulus. Then, she saw a bodyguard walking outside the meeting hall, carrying an unconscious Romulus on his shoulders, and he dropped Romulus onto the ground before Li. The young woman went to Romulus and shook him, asking him to wake up. The elder Francis stepped forward. "Li, don't you worry about him. The extraction of his wolf took a toll on his body. It will take a whole day for him to wake up." Li sighed in relief that Romulus was going to be okay. "By when should we leave? Romulus wouldn't be able to wake up until tomorrow." "Not to worry, I will open a portal, and it will take you where you want to go. But before I do, there is something you must know. We also took Romulus' memories of him ever being a werewolf." The young woman gasped. "Why?" "It was the order of the other elders, even though I opposed it. They were afraid that he would tell other humans of our location. They even wanted your memory gone, but I convinced them of it. I want you to remember at least how you met this young man." Li nodded. "Thank you, Elder Francis." Francis nodded and snapped his fingers, and a portal appeared above Li and Romulus. "Think of the one place you want to go, and it will take you. I wish you the best." The portal then forcibly took them both, and in a flash, someone was watching from afar, and the figure hid silently in the trees. The portal took them both to a place that Li recognized all too well. She saw a woman watering her plants in her gardens. Li held the unconscious Romulus in her arms. "Grandmother, we are here."
Chapter 29 Blood.
Isla was in her gardens, thinking non-stop about her granddaughter and her deceased daughter. Suddenly, she heard someone call out to her. The voice sounded familiar. Isla stopped and looked behind her. "Li." The older woman ran towards her granddaughter. and as she got closer, she noticed that Romulus was asleep. Granddaughter and grandmother hugged one another. "Lee, how did you?" "It is a long story, but do you have anything to lift Romulus? He is a bit heavy." The elderly gave out a chuckle. "I might have one of those long carts belonging to your grandfather. I'll be back." Minutes later, the two put Romulus on the long cart and firmly pushed him toward Isla's home. Once inside the house, the two women put Romulus on the sofa. They breathed heavily and sat on another couch, watching him sleep. "Lee, how did you get back? I thought it was forbidden for you and your mate to return." Lee explained everything that occurred. Isla silently listened to her granddaughter. When Lee finished explaining, both were quiet. "Since the elders took his wolf away, will he still remember you?" "Yes, only his wolf was taken away. The elders assured me that he would only forget that he was a werewolf and the world he was born in." Isla was a bit quiet, but then decided to ask, "Since a werewolf's bond to his mate is strong, is there a possibility that he won't have the same feelings anymore?" Lee did not think of that. He could not forget the love he had for her, the feelings he had for her. Romulus was no longer a werewolf. Now that he is human, his feelings might have changed. She shook her head. "I know he still loves me. We both sacrifice so much for one another. I know it." Isla was about to respond, but stopped when she and Lee saw Romulus moving. Lee immediately went to his side, holding his hand tightly. "Romulus." Little by little, Romulus opened his eyes. His eyes wandered, and then his eyes were on Lee. Lee felt her heart beat rapidly. Then, her being was hopeful as she saw Romulus smiling at her. Lee. She couldn't contain her tears anymore. She hugged Romulus and began crying. As for Romulus, he felt confused and concerned. He put his arms around her. "It's okay, Lee. I'm here." He soothed her, and moments later, Lee calmed herself. She looked at him. "Do you feel okay?" Romulus sat up and sighed. "My head hurts, and my body is filled with pain." "What happened?" Isla and Lee looked at one another, and then at Romulus. "Hey, Romulus, can I ask you something?" "Yeah, of course." "Do you remember your past?" Romulus looked confused. "I thought I told you that I was an orphan. I don't know my family or where I come from." Lee felt her heart sink. The elder said that Romulus has no memory and will have no memory of his past. It pained her that Romulus would have to live with that for the rest of his life. It was a cruel reality that she knew the truth, and he didn't. Do you still love me?" The young man raised his eyebrows. "Of course I do. You saved me from my loneliness when I had no one. You are my life, Lee. I love you with all my heart." He kissed Lee on her lips, and she kissed him back, but stopped it since Isla was with them. Isla stood from her seat. "I'll make some dinner, and you two can relax." Lee merely nodded as she was in Romulus' arms, enjoying his comfort. Everyone ate and was in each other's company until night arrived. Everyone slept until the next day came. Isla told Lee that her parents would come in a couple of days. Lee called her parents. They scolded her for not calling. However, she told them she wanted to introduce them to someone but refused to say anything more until they arrived. Romulus looked forward to meeting her parents. It was cute. Yet, there was so much in her head. Since Romulus was a werewolf, she sensed that he was not in the country's system. It would be difficult, but she refused to leave him, no matter how much her parents would disagree with her. Romulus was asleep while she was washing the dishes. Suddenly, she heard her grandmother yell. Lee dropped a dish, and Romulus ran out of the room. The two ran out, and once they were outside, both were in shock, especially Lee. "Are Remus?" Remus held Isla by the neck as he held her in mid-air. He looked at her. "It has been a while, Lee." "What are you doing to my grandmother? Let her go." "This woman was getting in my way. I politely asked her about your whereabouts, but she was stubborn." "Remus, please let her go." Remus shrugged and threw the older woman to the ground so that Isla bumped her head, making her lose consciousness. What worried Lee was that Remus was a werewolf. Romulus was no longer one. Remus then looked at Romulus and looked amused. "Hello, do you remember me?" Romulus was cautious as he stood before Lee. He sensed a dangerous aura from Remus. However, he felt something within him that made him think he knew him. His memory was vague. "Who are you?" "Ha, so it's true. The elder truly took his memories. How pathetic that he is a human." "What are you talking about?" He looked at Lee. "Do you know him?" Lee got a hold of his arm. "Please not now, Romulus. I will try to explain later. Trust me." Remus stepped forward. "He is human now, Lee, and you still want him. He will forget you and not love you as a werewolf. You told on us. Romulus has sacrificed so much because of his love for me. You did what you did for your selfish gains." "Selfish gains? I would have done anything for you." Lee growled in frustration. "I am sorry you haven't found your mate, but you don't have to rely on your wolf, but yourself. Romulus' love for me is strong. I don't love or want you and never will. I would rather die." Remus growled in anger. "As you wish." Then, Remus changed into his werewolf form and growled. Romulus was in shock. He could not believe what he had witnessed. "Romulus, run!" yelled Lee. Then, Remus ran toward Lee with the intent to kill her. He didn't care anymore. He felt nothing in his mind and heart. Remus thought he was robbed of happiness. He felt cursed for being born a werewolf. He wanted his pain to go away. Meanwhile, Romulus saw something on the ground, a small garden shovel he got a hold of, and pushed Lee out of the way. Lee was on the floor, trying to understand what was happening. She felt a warm liquid on her leg, and when she looked up, her mouth became wide. "Ah!"
Chapter 30 How? 20 years later.
Lee finished visiting her grandmother's grave, Isla, who died 10 years ago from old age. Lee now lives in the village where her grandmother lived. She could not return home to the States and did not want to. Her parents were initially angry, but when they visited her all those years ago, they respected her decision. She would visit her family in the States occasionally, but felt that she never belonged there. As Lee got out of the village cemetery, a young man was 58, with light skin, slicked back dark hair, and light eyes. "Numa, how long were you waiting for me?" The young man smiled while looking at his mother. "Not too long. I couldn't nap from my long journey. I sensed that you were here." Numa got accepted to the University of Cambridge in Great Britain and studied education with a major in ancient history. He arrived back home to visit his mother, Lee. Numa paused for a couple of seconds and took out an urn. "Are you sure that you are ready now, to let Dad go?" Lee nodded. She and her son began walking away from the village deep into the forest. She looked at her son. He looked so much like Romulus. Then, the memory of the day when Remus came. Remus was about to kill her, but Romulus pushed her out of the way, and Romulus stabbed Remus with a silver weapon. However, as for retaliation, Remus Wolf bit parts of Romulus's shoulder off, puncturing Romulus's heart and lungs. Romulus died instantly. As for Remus, he died of the silver, which was poisonous for werewolves. The elders arrived in the village about a day later when they found Remus missing. They knew he had gone to find Lee. They were right and saw Remus and Romulus dead. They assisted her in creating Romulus' body and gave her his ashes. The elders took Remus' body back and promised to leave Lee in peace. Lee never saw or heard from the werewolves again. 2 months after Romulus' death, she discovered she was pregnant. It broke her heart that Romulus had never known he would be a father. When Numa turned 8, she was shocked that he had shifted into a werewolf. When she and Romulus made love, he was still a werewolf before the elders turned him into a human, and Numa inherited his father's werewolf traits. Raising him was hard, but Lee told him his lineage and the truth. He understood and kept his identity a secret, but would take runs in his spare time. Mother and son climbed a rocky mountain, and Numa handed his mother the urn. Lee decided to cremate Romulus and did not want him buried in one place. Lee wanted him to roam free. It took her a while to decide to free his ashes. She knew he would have wanted her to move on. The sun was going down, and it was time. She opened the urn and got a hold of the ash. "Goodbye, my love. May you always roam free, and I will be with you soon. I promise." She let the ashes go with the wind and threw the rest. The wind was strong, and the ashes flew high into the air. Lee felt tears fall from her eyes. She let him go. Lee had his ashes for so long, but she knew the day would come. Mother and son hugged. "It's time we go home," she said. "You go ahead, Mom. I am going to let my wolf free for a bit." Lee nodded, climbed the small mountain, and walked to her village home. The night turned into night, and the full moon came into view. On the tip of the mountain, Numa changed into his light gray wolf form. His wolf watched as his father's ashes flowed with the wind before the full moon. Numa howled by the full moon as his father's ashes flew away. If you enjoyed the story, please consider leaving a review to help others find the book.